If you can hear me, the video is visible. Perfect. So welcome back to our discussion on international relations. Today we shall continue the topics that we had left off yesterday. We shall start with India's relations with Israel. If you guys remember, we had started with India-Israel relations. I had already discussed the background to India-Israel relations. So let's continue from there. Let's understand India's current relations with Israel, contemporary relations that we have with Israel. Let me just summarize before we begin. Let me just give you the overall summary of what we had covered yesterday. As far as India-Israel relations are concerned, we can divide the relationship into different phases. I told you yesterday that in 1948, when Israel declared unilateral independence, initially, India did not recognize Israel. Why? Because on ideological grounds, India was opposed to the creation of Israel as Israel had violated the two-state solution. It had broken the two-state solution, which was a UN mandate, and unilaterally declared independence against all the established rules. So as a result, India and several countries which empathize with Palestine, they did not recognize Israel initially. But after the first war, the first Arab-Israel war, there was all the Arab countries, they came to the rescue of Palestine. They launched a simultaneous war on Israel to liberate Palestine. Because Palestine, as promised, was never created. Israel never allowed Palestine to be created. So this led to the war, the Arab-Israel War of 1948, and Israel won the war. It managed to defeat the coalition of Arab states and won the conflict and firmly established itself in the region. So as Israel became a reality, in 1950, India did give recognition to Israel. We did recognize Israel as a new independent country. But however, official diplomatic relations were not established until 1991. During the entire Cold War period, we did not have any official diplomatic relations with Israel. Is that clear? That's because there were several reasons which were pushing India away from Israel. There were several pressure factors. The biggest pressure was the external pressure that was coming from West Asian countries, from the Arab states. Since these countries had declared war against Israel, they weren't allowing others as well to establish ties with Israel and recognize Israel. So since India was very dependent on West Asian countries and the Arab powers, India couldn't really go against them. It was a choice that was given essentially. It was like a do or die situation for India. We were heavily dependent on West Asian countries for oil supplies, without which our economy couldn't have survived. Plus, we had a strong Indian community in 60s, 70s itself. So it was essential for India to maintain good relations with West Asian countries and the Arab states, and as a result, our ties with Israel had to be compromised. There was a domestic reason as well, because this issue, the Palestine issue, apparently played a role in electoral politics. Several parties presumed that establishing ties with Israel would mean losing the Muslim votes in India. This of the political parties also contributed to India not establishing ties with Israel. But however, this was a minor factor. The major factor was the external pressure. West Asian countries made it clear that India has to choose. And this led India to protect its energy security, which was more important at that point than relations with Israel. Because West Asian countries would have definitely retaliated against India had we established ties with Israel. So throughout this period from 1950 to 1991, India couldn't go out and establish ties with Israel. However, in 1968, under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, because of strategic compulsions, India and Israel established a covert relationship. Since officially it was not possible to establish relations in the public domain, a secret relationship was started by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi between the intelligence agencies of the two countries. India's RAW and Israel's Mossad would establish a covert secret relationship focusing on their mutual security concerns, focusing on counterterrorism. So this relationship started out primarily in the defense and security domain, because both of them had very legitimate and serious concerns about Pakistan. Apologies for the interruption again. There was an update regarding the size of the thickness of the pen. I think now this should be fine. So the secret relationship between India and Israel was started out mainly in the security and defense domain, because both India and Israel had common security concerns. The biggest headache for India and Israel was Pakistan's nuclear weapons program, Pakistan's involvement in sponsoring terrorism. These were serious concerns that led India and Israel to collaborate from the beginning, and they both started working together in the security and defense domain. So this is how a secret relationship had developed that lasted until 1991. But 91 was a different era altogether, because in 1991, the Cold War came to an end. Right? The Cold War geopolitics came to an end, the Soviet Union had disintegrated, and by this time, the key West Asian power, Saudi Arabia, had become a close ally of the US, and secretly, it had become an ally of Israel as well. Let me explain why this dramatic shift happened. Because see, until one point, all these West Asian countries were opposed to Israel. In fact, even today, most of the West Asian countries, Arab countries, they don't have relations with Israel even today. Like Saudi Arabia, for example, the leading power of the region, even today does not have official ties with Israel. All right? All of them were backing the Palestinian cause. They gave support to Palestinian movement. They even supported several Palestinian terror outfits, which went on to attack Israel repeatedly. But however, in 1970s, there was a very big change. In 1970s itself, US and Saudi Arabia became very close allies, driven by oil geopolitics. The US wanted a greater control of the oil markets. In 1970s, there was an oil crisis in the oil market, which had disrupted the global economy. For US, it became a priority to exert its influence in West Asia, and it started reaching out to major powers like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, the leading Sunni power of the region and the leading oil producer, automatically aligned with American interests. Both had common interests that was driving them together. Both had issues with Soviet Union. You already know about US and Soviet Union, how they were during the Cold War. Even Saudi Arabia was on the side of the Western countries during the Cold War period. So based on oil geopolitics, based on the Cold War era geopolitics, US and Saudi Arabia had started getting closer to each other. Then, in 1979, something dramatic would happen in Iran. Iran, until then, was actually a moderate country, which was a very close American ally. Believe it or not, Iran until 1979 was a very, very close ally of the United States. But in 1979, there was the Iranian Revolution, through which the Shia clerics, the radical Shia clerics of Iran, they threw over the Iranian government and captured power, and they turned Iran into a theological, conservative state. This was a major shift that happened in the region. Until 1979, the Iranian government was seen as a puppet of the US government. The US had directly installed the Iranian government in 1950s. So from 1950s to 1970s, US had a friendly government in Iran. The Shia-Sunni sectarian divide was not strongly reflected in West Asian geopolitics because in Iran you had a friendly government that was friendly towards the US. So the legendary rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia didn't exist at that point of time. But in 1979, during Iranian Revolution, which was initially led by the people of Iran, it was quickly hijacked by radical Shia clerics. They threw out the Iranian government and captured power in the country. They formed a conservative, theological, radical state, established a Shia state, thus leading to a sectarian conflict with Saudi Arabia, as Saudi Arabia was the Sunni power of the region. Iran declared US and Israel as enemies. Iran strongly continued supporting the Palestinian movement, where Saudi Arabia moved away from supporting the Palestinian groups and it aligned with US, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Because now these three countries had a common enemy. The common enemy was Iran. Because as soon as Iran came under the radical Shia clerics, it swore to destroy Israel. It swore that US was an enemy. And obviously, Saudi Arabia was a major rival. So these three powers had a common reason to come together, US, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, because they all had rivalry with Iran. This divide which happened in West Asian geopolitics is what pushed Saudi Arabia to secretly establish a relationship with Israel. As the leading power established a secret relationship, it became easier for others as well to start establishing ties with Israel. So that pressure on India was no longer present by 1980s, 1990s. Until 1970s, we were under pressure. Because if we had set up ties with Israel, Saudi Arabia and its followers, they would have cut off India. They would have put pressure on India through oil supplies. But now that Saudi Arabia itself was inclining towards US and Israel, it became easier for India and others to go ahead and establish ties with Israel after 1991. In fact, much before this, in 1960s itself, in 1960s, to be specific, in 1967, there was a second war over Palestine issue. The Arab states launched another war against Israel called the 6-Day War. It lasted 6 days. They launched another war to try and liberate Palestine, to liberate the occupied areas by Israel and to establish Palestine. The Arab countries got together and launched another coalition war. But this time again, Israel won the conflict and defeated all the Arab states. This time, Israel captured key territories as well from the neighboring countries, including the Sinai Desert of Egypt. Israel fought back against the Arab invasion, defeated all the Arab powers, and captured the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. It occupied almost all the Palestinian territories and also captured the Golan Heights from Syria. All right, these are very, very important locations. It established almost complete control over Gaza Strip and West Bank and captured the Sinai Desert from neighboring Egypt and Golan Heights from Syria. This gave Israel a leverage against these Arab states, at least the neighboring countries. Since Israel occupied the strategic Sinai Desert, which connects with the Suez Canal and the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, this was a huge loss for Egypt. Egypt could not afford the loss of the Sinai Peninsula. It's an extremely important area for Egypt because it connects with the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aqaba. These are very important shipping channels. So as Israel occupied the Sinai Desert, it gave Israel the leverage to negotiate with Egypt. Israel and Egypt began negotiations following this war, and these talks were mediated by the United States. The US mediated the talks at Camp David, which is a presidential retreat in the US, where the US president goes for a retreat. It's like a resort. That's where the negotiations took place, at Camp David. It's a military camp acting as a retreat for the US president. So the US president mediated between Israel and Egypt, which led to the signing of the Camp David Accords in 1979. After several rounds of negotiations, the Camp David Accords were finalized, and Israel agreed to return Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. The Sinai Desert was given back to Egypt. But what was the condition? The condition was Egypt should end the hostilities. It should stop supporting the Palestinian movement and recognize Israel and establish ties with Israel. This was the condition because Israel had all the leverage. All right, US was obviously backing and supporting Israel all the time. As Israel won this war in 1967 and captured Sinai Desert, it had all the leverage against Egypt. It forced Egypt to end the war, to stop hostilities permanently, and stop supporting Palestinian groups forever. Thus, Egypt was taken out of this conflict, and Egypt had to recognize Israel and establish relations with Israel. So this made Egypt the first Arab country in the region to recognize Israel and establish ties with Israel. Across Middle East, North Africa, there are at least good 30, 40 countries. Not a single country had recognized Israel until then. So Egypt became the first country in the region to recognize Israel and establish ties with it. So following which, the Sinai Desert was returned, given back to Egypt. But the Golan Heights you see here is still occupied by Israel. It's Syrian territory actually, which was captured by Israel during the 1967 war. And Israel even today remains in occupation of the strategic Golan Heights, located on the borders between Israel and Syria. I'm stressing on these locations because there can be prelims questions based on these places, these important places. There could be a question on Gaza Strip or Sinai Desert or Golan Heights or the West Bank. So you should know the basic geography here. For example, Gaza Strip faces the Mediterranean Sea. It is surrounded by Egypt and Israel. That's a basic fact that any student should be aware of. West Bank, the other Palestinian territory here, it's called West Bank because it lies to the west of the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River here. It flows along the Israel-Jordan border. It drains into the Dead Sea. This is the popular Dead Sea that you see here. One of the lowest points on earth, right? Where you float as well because of the high saline level. So the bank that lies to the west of it, the west of Jordan River and Dead Sea, is called West Bank. This is the other Palestinian territory along with the Gaza Strip. These are the only two remaining Palestinian territories, Gaza Strip and West Bank. But Israel controls West Bank. Israel more or less has control over it. And throughout 1970s and 80s, there were many Palestinian terror organizations that kept attacking Israel with the support of other countries in the region. But before 1979, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, then Iran, Syria, Lebanon, all these countries, even Sudan, Morocco, right? All these countries here, they were supporting the Palestinian groups. Even Libya, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator at that point, even he extended support to Palestinian terror outfits. So across the region, multiple countries, they forgot the Shia-Sunni divide and all of them started supporting Palestinian terror groups. As a result, the violence continued here between Israel and Palestinian terror organizations. Then came the next big change in 1990s. In 1990s, there were few important changes that happened. Israel struck peace with Jordan, another important neighbor. Again, it was US which mediated between them. Since Israel had firmly established its territories, it struck a peace agreement with Jordan, and Jordan became the second country to recognize Israel and establish ties with Israel. So Israel made peace with two of its neighbors, thereby establishing its predominant position. Egypt had already established ties, and now Jordan in 1990s also gave recognition to Israel and established ties with Israel. So Jordan became the second Arab country in the region to recognize Israel. During this period, there was a mediation between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, which was a major terror organization representing the Palestinian outfits. There were peace talks between these terror groups, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and Israel, that was mediated by Norway. Norway is a neutral country. It has declared neutrality in every conflict. So as a neutral mediator, Norway facilitated talks between Israeli government and the Palestinian terror groups, and they reached a settlement called Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords were signed between the government of Israel and Palestinian Liberation Organization. This brought temporary peace to the region. To this, the PLO agreed to surrender to end its cycle of violence. In return, Israel also gave some concessions, and PLO became the legitimate authority of Palestine, which we today call as Palestinian Authority, or PA. Palestinian areas, especially the West Bank region, is governed, it is administered for the time being by a provisional authority called Palestinian Authority. All right, this was established and recognized by Israel as well through the Oslo Accords in 1990s. Right, these talks took place in Oslo, in Norway. Norway had mediated these talks. So, series of agreements were signed called the Oslo Accords, which ended the terrorism of some of these Palestinian outfits. Israel also in return gave some political concessions, and PLO would essentially become the administrative authority, the temporary ad hoc administrative authority for Palestinian areas. So today the West Bank region you see here is governed by Palestinian Authority. It sits at Ramallah. Ramallah is the capital of Palestine, the temporary provisional capital. The sacred city of Jerusalem here is largely under Israel's control. It's supposed to be part of Palestine, but Israel has taken almost complete control of it, and it has even shifted its capital. It's pushing other countries to shift their embassies as well to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, because this will further cement Israel's position. All right. So West Bank is under Palestinian Authority, which is recognized as the legitimate political representative of the Palestinians. However, in Gaza Strip that you see here, in Gaza Strip there is a terror group that operates called Hamas. Hamas runs Gaza Strip. It has full control over Gaza Strip. This terror group is sponsored by Iran and Syria and Lebanon even today. The Shia powers, they still sponsor Hamas against Israel, and it's a major terrorist organization operating out of the Gaza Strip. But in West Bank, it's largely Palestinian Authority which has control, but there are a few other new terror groups that have come up. There are smaller terror outfits in West Bank and Gaza Strip which keep targeting Israel, but Hamas is the major Palestinian outfit. All right? So this is the current situation. Israel still occupies the Golan Heights. No other country in the region has recognized Israel except for Egypt, Jordan, and a few other countries. I'll come to that point a little later. There's a recent development, a very big development. I'll come to that later. But at least until, let's say, 2020. Until 2020, no other country in the region had ties with Israel except for Egypt and Jordan. All right? But Saudi Arabia, as I told you, the Sunni powers, including UAE, Qatar, and others, they had secretly set up relations with Israel. They became allies of US because their rival was Iran. They aligned with Israel and secretly the geopolitical equation here, where US, Saudi Arabia, all Sunni powers, and Israel are on one side, and all the Shia powers led by Iran are on the other side. If you can understand this divide, this is more than sufficient. See, we need not go into the depth of the topic. I can continue the discussion. I can teach you West Asian geopolitics for at least a good 4 or 5 classes, right? But it's not relevant for the exam. UPSC will not go into the depth of this topic. The basic background, the basic knowledge, the basic divisions that exist here, and what exactly happened. If you have the basic awareness, it is more than enough. Because this does influence India's relations with these countries. India's relations with all these countries was heavily influenced by these geopolitics. So you should have a basic understanding so that you can thoroughly understand the current state of relations. All right? So this is how Israel firmly established itself. And here again, there's no right and wrong. All the sides have committed their share of mistakes. Israel has committed a grave series of mistakes. The Arab countries also have committed a series of mistakes. Palestinian groups have taken up terrorism to liberate the region. External powers have interfered excessively. US, European countries, Russia, they've all played a big role, and they've just played geopolitics. For their geopolitical interest, the region has been completely destabilized, and the conflict continues even today. All right? Hamas remains a notorious group, keeps launching attacks against Israel, against civilian areas. It keeps firing rockets from Gaza Strip towards Israel, and Israel retaliates by using massive force. Israel is known to use disproportionate force. Let's say Hamas fires a couple of rudimentary rockets. Few Israeli citizens will get injured, or maybe 1 or 2 might get killed. For that, Israel will retaliate by conducting an entire airstrike on Gaza Strip. It ends up killing hundreds of Palestinians, including civilians, who are not linked with Hamas. So this leads to a lot of human rights abuses in the region. Israel is often accused of violating the human rights of Palestinians. Every now and then there are conflicts in Jerusalem, especially during the Ramadan season. Right? Israel deliberately uses heavy force to prevent Muslims from marking the festival, to praying, with regard to their prayers. Israel tries to disrupt them deliberately, leading to clashes on the ground, which increases violence and a cycle of counter-retaliation. There are some new terror groups in Palestine and West Bank as well, which are linked with external terror groups, including Islamic State. So they have also carried out a new wave of violence against Israel, and Israel retaliates by conducting military strikes. It will launch special operations, covert operations. It will launch airstrikes, and there is massive destruction that happens over here. In the last 3 months itself, from January 2023, there have been multiple military raids by Israel in West Bank, where many civilians have been killed. This has led to a lot of protests and violence. Essentially, it's a cycle, a vicious cycle, which keeps repeating and continuing again and again. All right. So Israel is often accused of committing human rights violations, and Israel says it has to defend itself because there are serious threats for its very existence and its survival. Now, for India, things have become a little easier in the last 20, 30 years. Since the Sunni powers secretly aligned with Israel, led by Saudi Arabia, the pressure on India was off. So from 1990s, we were free. They themselves had secret relations. Nothing would stop India. So India went ahead in 1991 and established official relations with Israel. Because 1990s was seeing a decline in violence. Things were stabilizing because Sunni powers had withdrawn support to Palestinian groups, more or less. Israel had struck peace with the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and it had been recognized as a legitimate authority. So as things were normalizing to an extent in 1990s, India immediately set up official ties with Israel. PV Narasimha Rao government diversified India's foreign policy and set up an important relationship with Israel. Since then, we have further built very close defense and security relations. Even today, the most defining aspect of our relations happens to be the defense and security relations. From 1991 until 2014, that is until the Modi government came to power, our relations were mainly driven by defense and security, along with few other areas. Few areas like science and technology cooperation, agriculture, water management. These are other areas of collaboration, but defense and security remains the primary focus for India and Israel. Because even today we have similar concerns. We are concerned about Pakistan's involvement in terrorism. Right? The terrorism Pakistan sponsors against India eventually has links with other groups as well that threaten Israel. Pakistan's nuclear weapons remains a concern for both India and Israel. So India and Israel are very, very close partners when it comes to counter-terrorism, when it comes to intelligence cooperation. And more importantly, it has become a major defense supplier to India. Is that clear? It's one of the top 3 defense suppliers to India. The biggest defense supplier is obviously Russia. Usually in all the years, it is Russia which is the top supplier to India. Second is usually Israel, and third is United States. Remember this order as well. It could be relevant for a prelims question. The top 3 defense suppliers to India in the last few years. Russia first, Israel second, US at third position. All right? These are the top 3 defense suppliers to India. Today, Israel is sharing technology with India. We are having joint projects. We are jointly developing weapon platforms, jointly producing weapons. So it's a very close, very strategic relationship that has developed over the years. But however, from 91 to 2014, Israel was not entirely happy with India. I'll tell you why. Even though India officially set up ties and the ties started flourishing in certain areas, at UNHRC, the UN Human Rights Council, and at other UN bodies, India was casting a vote against Israel. We were casting a vote against Israel on the grounds of human rights violations. Several Arab countries, they would bring up a resolution against Israel, alleging that it was using disproportionate force. It was using excessive force against civilians. Thus, it was blamed for violating human rights. So whenever such resolutions came up, when such debates happened at UN and other bodies of the UN, like UNHRC, India was always voting against Israel, even though we had a very close strategic relationship. So Israel was not happy with this. All right. But after 2014, after the Modi government came to power, India has slightly shifted its approach. What's the new approach? The new approach is that we no longer vote against Israel. We abstain from it. We abstain from these votes. We neither support such resolutions nor we go against it. We abstain, thus taking a neutral stand and thus cementing our relations with Israel, thus further taking our relations forward with Israel. But please remember one important point. Since 1947 till now, India's support is always for two-state solution. This is very important for your analysis. UPSC might ask a main question here. What is India's position on the Israel-Palestine conflict? Analyze. You need to know that we firmly remain committed to the two-state solution even today, irrespective of which government, be it the Modi government, be it the former Manmohan Singh government, or the Vajpayee government. Successive Indian governments have consistently maintained support for the two-state solution. All right, which means we support the existence of Israel. We recognize that Israel should be a separate country. Similarly, we support the creation of Palestine. We support the rights of Palestinian people. Their rights were never fulfilled because Israel illegally occupied these areas, broke international law. So the stand is very clear. We support two-state solution even today. All right, we want an independent Palestine to be created. Not just India, most countries, even US, supports two-state solution. Most European countries, almost all European countries, they support two-state solution. Right? This is the only long-term solution to bring peace. But Israel is not allowing this to happen. Clear? So on this question, our stand is very clear. We support the creation of not just Israel, but we want a Palestine to be created as well as an independent country to ensure the rights of Palestinian people. All right, this is our stand. But on questions of human rights violation, we need not take a stand. This is not our conflict at the end of the day. It's important to draw lines. See, this is ideological position we are taking. Right? It's an idealist stand when we support Palestinian issue. But this is very much acceptable because it's only fair for the Palestinian people to have their own country. But since we are ideological here, we cannot extend the same into the broader relationship. Since Israel is such an important partner for our defense, for security, for many other areas, it's important to strike that balance. We need to balance Israel on one side, the Palestinian right on one side, the Sunni powers on one side, the Shia powers on the other side. This is India's diplomatic dilemma. All right? And it doesn't end here. The complexity doesn't end here. We also have to keep in mind the interests of Russia, US, and European countries. This also plays a role in India's stand on these issues. We have to balance everyone. That is exactly what India has been trying to do in the last 30 years. Ever since we established ties with Israel, step by step, we have moved away from West Asian countries and taken a more neutral stand. Before 91, we were aligned with West Asian countries. We didn't have relations with Israel. But after we established ties with Israel, we are striking that balance. We will build close relations with Israel, no matter what others will say. Right now, India is no longer dependent on these countries, right? Because they themselves have secret relations. The geopolitics of the region has changed, and India's oil supplies also have diversified. So this makes it easier for India in the last 30 years to go out and reach out to Israel and have very strong relations with Israel. Parallelly, we can balance out our ties with Sunni and Shia powers while continuing to support the Palestinian cause. For some of you, this might seem very confusing. How can we be there on all the sides? But that is how diplomacy works. Our national interests are the priority here. We have important interests with Sunni powers. We have important interests with Shia powers. We have important interests with Israel as well, right? And there's an ideological commitment to support the creation of Palestine. So this is the diplomatic balance that India is striking in the region. All right. So after 2014, the change that you see is that we no longer vote against Israel at international platforms because Israel has been a great friend of India. In every aspect, it has backed India. It has supported in the modernization of India's armed forces. I'll show you the list of weapons and defense platforms that are supplied to India. It has truly played a big role in modernizing Indian armed forces, and we have very close intelligence-based relations. We work very closely in counterterrorism, and more importantly, it has backed India completely on the Kashmir issue and with regard to our nuclear weapons program. On the Kashmir dispute, Israel is a complete supporter of India. Is that clear? And when we tested nuclear weapons, and when the whole world was criticizing India and placing sanctions on India, there were only three countries, three major powers, which supported India, which did not impose sanctions on India. All right? There were three countries which said that we recognize why India needs nuclear weapons. They even recognized the nuclear test. These three countries were Israel, Russia, France. That shows who are the all-time friends of India, all-weather friends of India. Israel, Russia, France. These were the only three major powers which did not condemn India when we conducted the second Pokhran test in 1998. They didn't join any sanctions regime against India. They even supported India's right to develop and test nuclear weapons. All right? So it's only fair for Israel as well that India doesn't vote against Israel because again, these are internal issues of the region. We need not interfere here. That's exactly what India has done. We have moved away from voting against Israel. We are abstaining from these votes, and this is how we are balancing Israel with the Palestinian cause. And on the other hand, our relations with the West Asian countries. Clear? If you can understand this, it becomes very, very easy. This is the core concept you need to understand, the approach of India. Essentially, we have dehyphenated Israel-Palestine issue. According to India, Israel-Palestine need not be seen in the same light. This hyphen need not exist. Israel-Palestine, which means you're treating it together, need not exist. Right now, the approach is we have dehyphenated this. Israel-Palestine are separate issues for us. Yes, we support the Palestinian right, we support two-state solution, but at the same time, we will continue our close relations with Israel. That is the balance India has struck. But of course, whenever there is a serious escalation in violence, we urge all the parties to maintain peace. Be it Palestinian terror groups, be it Israel committing atrocities, India will urge all the parties to maintain calm and reduce the violence and talk to each other. All right, that stand is taken by India when violence escalates. But otherwise, we will support Palestine. Palestine deserves to be a country. The people of Palestine deserve this right. It was snatched away by Israel illegally. At the same time, we will not target Israel over human rights issue. We will abstain from these votes and continue building our strategic relations. Is that clear? This is the analysis that is needed. Rest everything is facts. There are some important facts I'll be giving you next. We just have to go through those points. But the analysis, the overall evolution of the ties is what is important. So now, if you have any doubts on this, I know it's a complex topic. If you have any doubts, please ask the questions right away. I'll try to answer all of them because I know it could be complicated for some of you. Raghu is asking, why didn't the Sunni majority states didn't offer the Palestinians to migrate to their nations and establish peace in the region? See, Any country, how many refugees can you take? Can you take the people of an entire nation? Palestine is supposed to be a country. Even if they are taken by other countries, they will never have their identity. Now let's say Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, they took Palestinians as refugees. They will forever be refugees, forever be outsiders. Correct? Any people who have a national identity, they deserve to have a nation of their own. Their rights are protected only when Palestinians have their own country, not when they're accepted by some other country. They'll always be outsiders, they'll always be refugees. So the question of accepting all Palestinians by other countries never arises. Rishabh is asking, being such a powerful country with huge defense power, why Gaza Strip is still under the control of terrorists rather than Israel? See, my dear friend, Gaza Strip is not Israel's territory. Israel can't control or occupy it. Gaza Strip is Palestinian territory. Yes, there is a terror group largely controlling it, Hamas, but Gaza Strip is not Israel's to take. Gaza Strip is supposed to be part of Palestine, right? So that is the reason why Israel can't occupy it entirely. Akshay is asking, before Israel's rebellion, we were against the two-state solution at UN because it was similar to the India-Pakistan division. Now, how do we support two-state solution? I explained this yesterday. Initially, when two-state solution was proposed, yes, India and many other former colonies who were against imperialism and colonialism, they all took a stand against communal division, communal partitions, because we ourselves had suffered the impact of communal partition based on how Pakistan was created. Initially, when the idea was to create a Jewish Israel and a Arab Palestine, most countries opposed it on ideological grounds because we didn't want a communal division to happen. But later, this was the only acceptable solution because violence had escalated between the Jews and the Palestinian Muslims. Large-scale communal violence was taking place. The only way to stabilize the conflict and ensure both communities' rights are met was to create two separate countries. So finally, at the UN, all countries accepted two-state solution as the only viable solution: a separate Jewish state Israel and a separate country for Palestinians. That became the accepted solution, and hence we continue supporting this. It's a UN-mandated solution which had global support. So not just India, almost every country supports the two-state solution. What do you mean by dehyphenated? Dehyphenated means we are separating the two issues. Like, for example, when US deals with India and Pakistan, they had an approach of seeing India and Pakistan together. All right. Now there is a dehyphenation. US deals with Pakistan a little separately and with India separately. Right? Both are independent relations. When you mix the two together, there are chances that you will ignore the interest of the other. That's what India was doing before because of all the compulsions. We would look at Israel-Palestine issue as one single issue. Now we have dehyphenated. We have separated this. We have separate relations with Israel, separate ties with Palestine. Let me give you one example here. Prime Minister Modi has visited Israel a couple of times. Right? Prime Minister Modi has been very close to Benjamin Netanyahu, the current Prime Minister of Israel, and we have very close relations with the Israeli government. At the same time, Prime Minister Modi has visited Palestine as well. Not in the same visit, but in a separate visit. PM Modi went to Israel, signed important agreements and came back. Later, he went to Palestine separately to recognize the Palestinian right. He visited Ramallah, met with Palestinian Authority, and we gave complete support for Palestinians to have their own country. We supported the two-state solution again. That is how India is maintaining relations. We have separated the two issues in a way. That is called dehyphenation. We support Palestinian right to have their own country. We support two-state solution. We have relations with Palestine as well today. All right. Since many years, we have separate relations with Palestine. Similarly, we have separate ties with Israel. We will not mix the two. We will not let this issue affect the ties with the other. That is the dehyphenation India has achieved, the separation, and this protects our interests, our influence. All right. So if you understand this, it is more than enough. Okay. These are the questions. Now, I'll move to the next part of this discussion. There are some important facts that you should be aware of. Let's take a look at the various important deals between India and Israel. We look at the military and strategic ties and agreements. First, of course, we have a common threat from jihadist outfits that operate across the region. Pakistan-based groups, Afghanistan-based groups like Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, they do have some links and connections with the other terror groups. It could be Hamas, it could be the Hezbollah, it could be Islamic State, right? So some of these terror groups, they do have some interlinkages, right? That is why it's a common threat. So India, Israel jointly counter the threat. We have very close counter-terror cooperation. I've been saying this from the beginning. Our intelligence agencies are very close to each other. India's RAW and Mossad, they both work together. We share intelligence. We even conduct joint operations sometimes. All right. Similarly, our domestic intelligence agencies, Intelligence Bureau and the Shin Bet of Israel, are very close. All right. The foreign intelligence agencies, RAW and Mossad, and the internal domestic intelligence agencies, IB and Shin Bet, both are very close to each other. We actually work very closely with Israeli agencies. All right. As I told you, Israel did not condemn India's nuclear tests, and it has supplied a series of weapons and defense platforms to India. Today, Israel is a very important partner in training our security forces, police officers, intelligence officers. Several probationers are sent to Israel for further training. The new recruits into RAW and IB, they're often sent to Israel to be trained by Mossad and Shin Bet. Even IPS probationers, some of them who are chosen, right? They are sent to Israel for further training for a short period. Our defense forces also have joint training exercises. So that is the extent of close cooperation we have in the military and security domain. We have purchased the Barak surface-to-air missiles for air defense, which has been inducted by the Indian Army. Also, Indian Air Force also has the Barak surface-to-air missiles. It's an air defense platform. Most of the drones India is operating currently, the unmanned aerial vehicles, they're all of Israeli origin. The Searcher and Heron drones. They are used for surveillance, for intelligence gathering, for border management. All right. These drones are used by all the security forces and agencies of India. The Indian Army, the Indian Navy, BSF, RAW, IB, NTRO. Right. All these forces, all the security forces, they have their own drone fleet, and most of the drones in India are from Israel, either Searcher or Heron drones. These are unarmed version of the drones. They are used for intelligence gathering. We are negotiating for armed version of the drone called Heron TP. It's an armed drone. It can fire precision missiles, guided missiles. Heron TP is the latest advanced version of the drone. There is a proposal to buy this drone as well. It's a negotiation which is underway. India is also looking to build a fleet of armed drones for surgical strikes and precision strikes. So Heron TP is contending for this project, for this proposal, and India is looking to procure this armed version of the Heron. Next, for the Indian Air Force, we have procured Falcon AWOCS. AWOCS basically act as a flying command station. It's like a flying command center for the Indian Air Force. It stands for Airborne Early Warning and Command Control System. All right, essentially on a transport aircraft, advanced radars are installed. And when this aircraft is flying in a particular airspace, it can scan the entire airspace. It can detect enemy aircraft and monitor our aircraft. And in an actual warfare environment, when actual aerial combat is taking place, AWOCS systems will provide the necessary inputs, the necessary guidance for the pilots to manage the network-centric warfare, to identify the enemy, to distinguish the enemy from the friendly forces. And it acts as a force multiplier in a conflict. For example, when India carried out Balkot airstrikes, and when Pakistan retaliated the next day, Falcon AWOCS were deployed on the Indian side to monitor the airspace and accordingly advise the Indian pilots, right, who will be operating in that combat zone. So in actual live combat, in an aerial dogfight between two air forces, AWOCS systems play a very, very important role. It's like a flying command station. Is that clear? It can monitor the entire airspace around it, distinguish between enemy and friendly aircrafts, give the information about their positions, determine the strategies, give inputs, give advice, and thus they play a critical role in aerial combat. It's seen as a force multiplier, that too in a network-centric warfare environment. Today is a network-centric warfare environment where every system is interlinked through a network. Your fighter jets are linked with command stations, they are linked with other aircraft and helicopters in the same environment, right? So you have a completely network-centric environment today, and AWACS systems play a critical role. It functions as the hub of this network. So the Falcon AWACS has been procured from Israel for the Indian Air Force. We have extensive collaboration between our intelligence agencies and also joint training. And cybersecurity is another critical area of collaboration. Is that clear? So that is the extent of close relations we have in the military defense domain. Next, we are looking at a joint development of other short-range and long-range missiles. This is an ongoing project involving DRDO and the Israeli defense agencies. India's DRDO works closely with Israel's defense sector, both public and private defense sector. There are a few initial projects underway to develop short-range, long-range missiles. This is an ongoing project. We also have very close collaboration in the space domain. India's ISRO is a very close partner for Israel. You would have heard about our RISAT series of satellites. The RISAT satellite, it carries a unique payload called synthetic aperture radar. All right. These satellites which have the synthetic aperture radar, they are actually military satellites. They actually have a dual application. They can serve a civilian purpose, all right, but they do serve a very, very important military purpose. So any satellite which has a SAR payload, a synthetic aperture radar, it has military applications. Because such a radar, it can capture extremely high resolution images. See, generally your regular Earth observation satellites, they come with optical cameras. Problem is optical cameras, they don't function very well during the night. Even if they have thermal or infrared based imaging, they don't capture very good images during the night time when there is dark cover. And optical cameras cannot penetrate cloud cover effectively. Right? So when there's a cloud cover over a particular region, you'll not get good images. But this is where synthetic aperture radars are different. They can penetrate cloud cover. They operate very efficiently even during the night. They give you extremely high resolution images, which can not only be used for civilian purposes like disaster management, resource planning. You can have a huge military application for such images. You can monitor your enemy, troop deployments, monitor the border areas, use it for surveillance and intelligence gathering. And hence, the RISAT series of satellites are essentially military satellites of India. This was launched by ISRO, but the technology itself came from Israel. All right, Israel worked with India, worked with ISRO in developing the synthetic aperture radar, which was the payload on the RISAT satellite. All right. Other than this, there are many other areas as well in the space domain where India and Israel work together. Next, agriculture, desalination, and water management. Israel is a global leader in these domains. I'll tell you why. See, Israel is basically in a desert, right? It has arid climate, it has water scarcity, but it's a technological powerhouse. So what Israel has done is that it has used technology to overcome the limitations of the geography of the place. It has solved the problem of water scarcity and aridity of the region to support one of the most advanced forms of agriculture. Israel is a leading power in the field of smart agriculture. It has come up with many drought-resistant crops. It's a leader in hybrid crops. It has developed new forms of animal husbandry, animal rearing, which is less water intensive. It has developed crops which don't require much water. It has developed efficient irrigation methods, which are controlled by computers, by sensors. It is a pioneer in smart agriculture where it has linked modern technology, including Internet of Things and satellite communication, with agricultural fields. This has increased the productivity of Israel's farm sector. This is something India would love to learn from. It's a pioneer in water management, right? Because Israel has a adverse need to save water, to minimize water wastage, to ensure crops don't consume too much water and ensure animals don't consume too much water. That's why it's a leader in drought-resistant farming, in less water-intensive animal husbandry. It's a leader in irrigation and water management projects, and it's a pioneer in desalination. It takes seawater from the Mediterranean and removes the salinity and makes it suitable for drinking purposes. It makes the water potable. Obviously, India has the same challenges. We witness droughts periodically. There are many regions in India which are arid and semi-arid, and there is massive water scarcity in India, right? So all these technologies are very relevant for India's agriculture and rural sector, and this is one key area where we collaborate. Next, across the domain of science and technology, the cutting edge of science, Israel is a top country with regard to research and development and innovation. Our startups, they work together. Israel is also a hub of startups. There are many tech-based IT companies and startups based out of Israel. India is similarly a hub of startups and tech companies. So we have a lot of collaboration between our companies. In the biotech domain, there's a lot of collaboration in the development of vaccines, dealing with the pandemic, for example, developing better diagnostic tools, right? These are some important areas of collaboration. And of course, in the field of emerging technologies, emerging and critical technologies. This is where Israel is a leader again in artificial intelligence, in robotics, machine learning, neural networks. In this critical strategic domain, Israel is a leader. India also has an active program in this domain. So we naturally collaborate in all these critical areas. In all the emerging technologies, including 5G communication, Internet of Things, right, big data. In all these domains, we work very closely with Israel, and it's a global leader in cybersecurity as well. Israel has a very modern offensive and defensive cyber weapons program, right? So India wants to learn from that. We are working with Israel not just to develop defensive cyber weapons, but also offensive cyber weapons as part of our cyber warfare strategy. So these are the close relations that India and Israel have established over the last 3 decades. It's a huge shift compared to what it was before, right? I hope you really understood the complex equations, right? And along with that, the basic facts that I've covered in the last few minutes. If you remember this, it's more than enough, more than sufficient. The last point here, recently there is a radical shift again which has happened in 2020. What happened was the United States under Donald Trump, who's seen as very close to Israel, because in the United States, the right wing in the US, the Republican Party, is often seen as more close to Israel. All right, Israel has a very strong Jewish lobby in the US, which puts a lot of political diplomatic pressure on the US government. Especially the Republican Party in general is seen as very, very close to Israel. In Israel also, you see a rise of right-wing conservative ideology. The same has been seen in the US. So these forces align together. So Donald Trump has consistently backed Israel, even supported the illegal Jewish settlements of Israel in Palestine. This is another unfortunate practice of Israel. Israel has pushed Jewish communities to settle in Palestinian areas, which is again a violation of international law. Slowly, Israel is eating away at Palestinian territories. Israel is pushing Jewish settlers into West Bank and giving them all support to the police, to the legal system, right, and making suitable changes to make it a legal takeover. These illegal settlements are coming up, and they eventually become official legal settlements, and they're creepingly eating away the Palestinian territory. So US has always supported such creeping annexations, the continuing discrimination against Palestinian civilians. So Donald Trump, who is seen as a very close ally of Israel and the right wing in Israel especially, he managed to mediate between the Sunni powers and Israel and a landmark agreement was struck between United Arab Emirates and Israel in 2020. It's called the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords were signed with the mediation of the US. It was signed between Israel and UAE, a major Sunni power. The UAE became the third Arab country to recognize Israel and establish Israel after Egypt and Jordan. Remember, I told you until 2020, only two countries in the region had ties with Israel, that is Egypt and then Jordan. With this agreement, with the Abraham Accords, UAE, a major power, became the third country in the region to recognize Israel and establish ties with Israel. So today, the two countries have formally set up ties. They have opened embassies in each of those countries. They've started trade relations and connectivity between them. All right, this marks a huge shift because this wouldn't have happened without the approval of Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Sunni world in the region. All these are allies right now: US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel. They're all on one side. Without Saudi's approval, this shift would not have happened because Saudi Arabia itself does not have ties with Israel even today. Officially, they don't have relations. Why is Saudi Arabia doing this? Because it wants to keep projecting an image that it still stands for the Palestinian cause. Since Saudi Arabia projects itself as a leader of the Muslim world and the Muslim community, right, to maintain that geopolitical position, it is misleading the people. By not having official ties with Israel, it's showing the world that it cares about the Palestinian issue, that it still supports the Palestinian issue. But in reality, it doesn't. It stopped long ago. Since they became close to US and Israel, they stopped backing the Palestinian cause. But they just maintain the posture in front of the world. But behind the scenes, they work closely with Israel. Now this is being formalized. UAE has become the first major power here in the recent times to recognize and set up ties with Israel. This was done to the Abraham Accords. The same agreement was signed by Bahrain, and Bahrain became the fourth country to recognize Israel and set up ties with Israel. Bahrain again is an ally of Saudi Arabia and UAE. Bahrain is a small kingdom; it can't do things on its own. If it had signed Abraham Accords, it's because Saudi Arabia told Bahrain to do that. Without Saudi and UAE approval, Bahrain couldn't have signed the Abraham Accords. All right, so clearly you are witnessing a shift where the Sunni powers are almost ready to formally acknowledge Israel and set up ties with Israel. This marks a major shift. Later, similar agreements were signed by Sudan and Morocco, two major African countries in the region. Even they recognized Israel and established relations with Israel through separate agreements. These were separate agreements between Israel and Sudan and Israel and Morocco. They were all mediated by the US government, by the Trump administration. It was the Trump government which mediated these agreements between Sudan and Israel and Morocco and Israel. These are separate agreements. They are not part of Abraham Accords. Please remember this. So in prelims, if there is a question, which countries are party to Abraham Accords? The answer is Israel, UAE, and Bahrain. These are the three countries which have signed Abraham Accords. US has not signed it. Please remember, US is just a mediator. US is not party to Abraham Accords. It's only a mediator. Sudan, Morocco have signed separate agreements. So only Bahrain, UAE, and Israel, these three countries are party to Abraham Accords. All right. So this marks a major shift in the region. And why am I stressing on this point? I'm stressing on this because it has relevance for India. Recently, a mega initiative has been launched. And why am I which have signed Abraham Accords? US has not signed it. Please remember, US is just a mediator. US is not party to Abraham Accords. It's only a mediator. Sudan, Morocco have signed separate agreements. So only Bahrain, UAE, and Israel, these three countries are party to Abraham Accords. All right. So this marks a major shift in the region. And why am I stressing on this point? I'm stressing on this because it has relevance for India. Recently, a mega initiative has been launched called I2U2. This could happen only because of the Abraham Accords. The two I's represent India and Israel. The two U's here represent UAE and US. These four countries, which have common interests, common objectives, have come together to establish I2U2 summit. It was established formally last year. It is mainly an economic partnership. Is that clear? They are saying it's not a strategic grouping. It has no strategic military dimension to it. It's an economic partnership to boost economic relations between these countries. This would never have been possible without Abraham Accords because UAE did not have relations with Israel until 2020. Now these like-minded countries are coming together, but China sees this as a strategic grouping. It even calls it a military grouping, and China and few experts have called it the West Asian Quad. Few experts in China, they are looking at I2U2 as the West Asian Quad. Just like we have a quadrilateral for Indo-Pacific. They are saying that similarly for West Asia, this is a quad grouping, which means it might have military and strategic dimensions. This is the claim of China. All right, but in reality, it has no military dimension. Please understand. China is saying it's the West Asian Quad. India, US, Israel, UAE have clearly said it has no military dimension, no strategic dimension. It's purely an economic partnership. US has the technology and money. Israel has the same. It has technology. It has sufficient funds. UAE has massive amounts of money. India, unfortunately, has neither, but we have human resource, skilled human resource. The plan is to pool them together. US will bring the technology and money. Israel will also source the technology. UAE will give the funds needed. We will give the manpower needed and other resources that are needed. So the plan here is to pool such resources and create a strong economic partnership. For example, in food processing, there's already a mega initiative announced in Gujarat. I2U2 will be setting up a mega food processing unit. A massive food processing facility will come up in Gujarat, where technology will come from Israel, funds will come from US and UAE, and India will set up the plant, run the plant with our resources. All right. So such projects are being considered, where the money, the technology, and the resources, human resources, and raw materials can be fused, can be brought together to create a major economic partnership in West Asia. All right. This marks the rising influence of India. It shows how influential India also has become in West Asia because of our close ties with Israel and US. As we discussed yesterday, we already have extremely close relations with the Sunni powers, with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, with Qatar, Oman, and the others. So India's influence has definitely gone up, but it is China which remains the most influential after the United States. After the US, China remains extremely influential here, mainly because of its Belt and Road Initiative, its mega investments in the region. China is extremely close to all the West Asian powers. China is the only one which can keep aside the Sunni-Shia divide, work with all the countries. That's why it can work with Iran, it can work with Saudi Arabia as well. It can even work with Turkey. China has that unique influence and leverage where it can overcome the geopolitical divides and work with all the conflicting powers, thus protecting Chinese influence and interests. So it is possible for India and US to work together here to counter the Chinese influence. So I2U2 is an economic partnership between these four countries to pool their resources and establish their economic influence. All right. So that's a recent development and hence a very important topic for our exams. So this completes my discussion on India-Israel. It's a big topic. But trust me, it's worth it. Because if there's a main question, analysis-based question, without this understanding, you won't be able to write an answer. You can't by heart these points. You need to trace the journey, understand what really happened. And in the limited time available, we have done the best possible to cover this topic as comprehensively as possible. Because India-Israel relations, India's ties with West Asian countries, it's a defining aspect of our foreign policy. And it's very, very important for the exams as well. Now let's move on to the next and the last topic here. That's India's relations with Iran. It's a relatively smaller topic. So let's wrap it up and then we'll take a short break. India, Iran share a very unique relationship again. I'll explain this step by step. From 1950s to 1979, I would call this phase one of our relationship. During this period, we actually had minimal ties with Iran. We had a very basic minimal relationship. Why? Because the Cold War had divided us. All right? You clearly know India was non-aligned until 1971. Then we aligned with Soviet Union after 1971. Correct? This is something we repeatedly studied in previous classes. Now let's see where Iran was during this period. Iran was a very, very close American ally. I know some of you might find it difficult to believe because today US and Iran are arch enemies of each other. Right? They repeatedly target each other. Iran has sworn to wipe out US and Israel. US has conducted multiple strikes and covert operations targeting Iran. That is the rivalry they have today. But before 1979, things were different. It was almost the opposite. Iran was actually a more open society, more modern, liberal, because it was not under the radical Shia clerics. In Iran, the ruler was the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was installed in power in 1951-52 by the US. It was believed to be a CIA operation through which a friendly regime was installed in Iran. It was widely believed that the CIA was controlling the Shah of Iran, and thus a sentiment had spread that Iranian government is a puppet of the US. Is that clear? From 1950s to 1979, Iran was seen as a puppet of the US. The plus point of this was Western culture was influencing Iran. Iran had become a more modern, liberal, inclusive, open society. But the downside was it was acting as a proxy of the US. US was using Iran for its geopolitics. All right. This led to the uprising in 1979. This led to a massive uprising because the people were frustrated with the Shah of Iran. Under the Shah of Iran, the people of Iran felt the country was not being respected. The country had lost its identity, its pride, as it had become a puppet of the US. Plus, there was lack of development, corruption within the government as well. So this led to a mass rebellion. It was a genuine people-led movement initially. The Iranians, they genuinely protested and fought back. But very quickly, this revolution, the Iranian revolution, very quickly it took a violent turn. And it was hijacked by the radicals. The Shia radical clerics, they hijacked the movement and took over the movement. And eventually, they succeeded in the revolutionary movement. They threw out the Shah of Iran. The Shah fled the country. Right? The government was thrown out. And obviously, it broke Iran's relations with the West. In fact, Western embassies were shut. Western embassies were targeted by the protesters as well. Several diplomats were held hostage as well. This was a complete breakdown of relations between US and Iran, European countries and Iran, especially UK and Iran. So as these relations broke down, Iran succeeded in its revolution. The radical Shia clerics took over the country and they turned Iran into a theological, conservative, radical state overnight. It adopted a radical version of Shia Islam. Again, religion was being misused, misinterpreted for politics. All right? Iran came under the supreme leader, who's a religious figure, Ayatollah Al-Khamenei. You might have heard about this position. You might read about this name called Ayatollah or Ayatollah Al-Khamenei. This position, it's the name of the position. Right? The supreme leader is a religious figure in Iran. Is that clear? Even the president of Iran, right? He reports to the supreme leader, who's a religious figure. He's a Shia cleric. The Ayatollah is the supreme religious figure under whom the Iranian government functions. So there is no democracy here. There is no modern values here. It became a regressive state by adopting conservative religion as its official state religion. All right. Since then, it became an authoritarian dictatorial state where human rights and gender rights, especially, are frequently abused. So as Iran rose as a Shia power, it immediately triggered a conflict with the Sunni powers. This was bound to happen. This is when the rivalries came up. As Iran rose as a Shia power, became a powerful Shia country, aligned with Syria and other Shia powers, it triggered disputes and conflicts with the Sunni powers. This led to the Iran-Iraq war in 1980s. All right. Iraq is very unique. Iraq's population is Shia. The majority population is Shia. But the rulers were Sunnis. I'm referring to Saddam Hussein and his party, the Ba'athist party. Saddam Hussein and his Ba'athist government. Ba'athist party is a political, religious political outfit in Iraq and in the Arab region. Saddam Hussein belongs to the Ba'athist party. So Iraq was at that time ruled by the Sunnis. Sunnis were in power. But the country is majority Shia. So Iraq felt threatened by the rise of a Shia Iran. They feared Iran will sponsor a rebellion by the majority population that could throw out the Sunni government. It led to the Iran-Iraq war of 1980s, and during this entire period, our ties with Iran was actually affected and compromised. We weren't close to Iran at that point. See, until 1979, we ourselves were non-aligned, later aligned with Soviet Union, whereas Iran was an American ally. So until 1979, there was no question of close ties between India and Iran. It was impossible. After the revolution, we did recognize the new government, but again, we couldn't get close to Iran because it was a radical state, a conservative state. And immediately, Iran-Iraq war broke out, and India had to choose Iraq in this conflict. Why? Because Saddam Hussein was critical for India. Iraq has been the biggest oil supplier to India. Even then, it was the biggest supplier. Even today, it is the top supplier. So since we were heavily dependent on Iraq, we were forced to choose sides. And this made Iran angry. Is that clear? This made Iran angry, and Iran retaliated against India by backing Pakistan by supporting the Kashmir issue at global platforms. Iran would work with Pakistan because Iran and Pakistan are neighbors. Initially, Iran and Pakistan were quite close to each other, and it would support Pakistan on critical issues, including the Kashmir issue. Iran would deliberately bring up the Kashmir issue and support Pakistan in the separatist movement in order to target India, because India was siding with Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. So until 1980s, we were on the opposite sides. We didn't have very good relations. We had minimal relations, but with some issues. Every time there would be some issue or the other. Is that clear? So Cold War had divided us, plus the developments here in the region had kept India and Iran a little away from each other. We had very basic, very minimal relations, nothing special about it. But the real collaboration started in 1996 in Afghanistan. This is where the story of the close India-Iran relations began. If you guys remember, we had already covered this. We had already discussed this point when we spoke about India-Afghan relations. In 1996, the Taliban took over the country. The Taliban captured power and formed a radical government. Correct? Taliban was a threat for India. Why? Because Taliban is controlled by Pakistan's ISI. Taliban has nurtured various terror groups that target India. So India-Taliban relations were extremely poor. India saw Taliban as a serious threat. Iran had a similar opinion because Taliban is a Sunni radical group, whereas Iran is a Shia power. So Iran could not tolerate the Taliban ruling its neighboring country. Afghanistan is also a neighbor of Iran, sharing a long boundary. So Iran felt threatened when the radical Sunni group came to power and captured power through violence and established a radical regime in Afghanistan. So India-Iran had a common interest, and this aligned with Russia's interest. Russia hated the Taliban at that point because Russia's predecessor Soviet Union had been defeated by Taliban's predecessor Afghan Mujahideen. Understood? We have covered all of this again. I'm just summarizing it. So Russia obviously was concerned about Taliban because its fear was terrorism from Afghanistan could spill over into Central Asia and Russia. There are many extremist groups in Central Asia and parts of Russia as well, in the Caucasus region of Russia. So Russia wanted to protect itself and shield Central Asia from any influence of radicalism. So Russia also decided to counter the Taliban. These three like-minded countries, they aligned together to launch a covert war against the Taliban by supporting the Northern Alliance. From 1996 to 2001, until Taliban was in power, India, Iran and Russia together, they secretly sponsored the Northern Alliance, which is a collection of northern tribes in Afghanistan, to counter the Taliban. Is that clear? We spoke about this. I told you Russia helped India as well to get access to military bases in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, the neighboring countries of Afghanistan. From these bases in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, India's RAW would supply funds and weapons and medical support to the northern tribes, to the Northern Alliance, which was fighting against the Taliban. Iran was working with India, Russia was working with India. It was a joint initiative of the three countries to covertly sponsor Northern Alliance to weaken the Taliban. This is where our strategic partnership started with Iran. From 1996 and by early 2000, a strategic relationship had developed. Very quickly, Iran became our top oil supplier. Along with the strategic, security, defense-based relations, we quickly expanded our economic relations as well. Iran is blessed with hydrocarbons, oil and gas. It controls the Hormuz Strait. Please look at the map. Iran is located right next to the Hormuz Strait. Iran has the biggest control of the Hormuz Strait. So these were very, very important interests for India. Very quickly, we started sourcing oil from India, oil and gas, and it became the second largest supplier of crude oil to India. After Iraq, Iran became the second top supplier. India started investing heavily in the country, in the oil and gas industry. For example, ONGC Videsh Limited invested in the Farzad B gas field of Iran. The Farzad B gas field was a strategic oil and gas reserve located off the coast of Pakistan, actually, in the Arabian Sea towards Gulf of Oman. In these critical waters, an Indian company had invested with Iran. All right. Next, we took up the strategic Chabahar port project, which we have studied in detail. By 2005, under the Manmohan Singh government, India conceptualized a major initiative, a connectivity initiative, to link India with Iran, further with Afghanistan and Central Asia. I've explained how India had good relations with Afghanistan and Central Asia. They're all blessed with resources. They're ready to allow India to exploit the resources. Problem was connectivity. We weren't connected or linked with Afghanistan and Central Asia. So India worked out a new route, an alternate route. That's via Iran. So we developed the strategic Chabahar port. We planned to build a railway line with Iran, connecting with Afghanistan, where we could link with the road that India itself had built in Afghanistan, the Zaranj-Dilaram road. So India's ambition was to link these countries together through the mega Chabahar port project. Essentially, we became a top investor. But by this point, by 2003, Iran's relations with US and Israel and Saudi Arabia was getting very badly affected. And this has had a huge impact on India-Iran relations. As tensions increased between these rivals, Iran started pursuing the development of nuclear weapons. In fact, it's believed that from 1980s, 1990s itself, Iran had nuclear ambitions. As US and Israel threatened Iran, as the Sunni powers were a threat, it started seeing nuclear weapons as a shield against these threats. By early 2000, it accelerated the nuclear weapons program, and Iran started getting closer to building a nuclear bomb. This led US, European countries, and Israel, and the Sunni powers to target Iran. Is that clear? They tried to derail Iran's nuclear weapons program. US and Israel especially, they used covert operations to cripple and disable Iran's nuclear program. For several years, it's believed that American and Israeli intelligence agencies, they assassinated top Iranian nuclear scientists, top generals. They were all assassinated and killed, reportedly by the CIA and the Mossad, which are the intelligence agencies of US and Israel. Along with these covert assassinations, they even carried out a major cyber attack by using a computer worm called Stuxnet. This was back in 2008, 2009. During this period, I'm talking about the period between 2005 to 2010. During this period, they conducted many covert operations to derail the program. They assassinated several top scientists and generals and launched a major cyber attack using a worm called Stuxnet that destroyed Iran's nuclear centrifuge facilities. Centrifuges are used to enrich uranium, right? You need highly enriched uranium to produce weapons-grade uranium through which you can build a nuclear bomb. So to cripple the enrichment process, they carried out a major cyber attack. It's believed Stuxnet, this sophisticated computer worm, which is a cyber weapon, was developed by American and Israeli security agencies. They used the Stuxnet to infiltrate into Iran's centrifuges. They caused it to malfunction and destroy itself. They destroyed the centrifuges through a cyber attack, which slowed down Iran's nuclear weapons program. Along with these covert operations and cyber attacks, they launched a series of economic sanctions that crippled Iran's economy, especially its key sectors, oil, gas, and defense. These critical sectors of Iran were hit by crippling Western economic sanctions that was imposed by the United States. Now, when this happened, the US put pressure on India, on the Manmohan Singh government, to cut off ties with Iran. Because India and US were closer by this point of time. US expected India to follow the sanctions and put pressure on India to follow the sanctions. They asked India to cancel other projects on which we were working with Iran. So the Manmohan Singh government struck a balance. The Manmohan Singh government agreed to cancel one project, the IPI pipeline. Anyways, we weren't too interested in it, the Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline. It was supposed to be an underwater gas pipeline, bringing oil and gas from Iran to Pakistan to India. Manmohan Singh government said we'll drop this project. But we cannot compromise on Chabahar port. More importantly, no matter what you say, we will not compromise on oil imports. Because Iran is critical for our oil supplies. Iran is a reliable supplier, supplying cheap and good oil to India. And there's no way India is going to stop those imports because Iran was the second largest supplier at that point. If India had cut off oil imports under American pressure, it would have hit our energy security. All right? So India withstood the American pressure, went ahead, and we bypassed the American sanctions. See, we don't follow unilateral sanctions. I've already told you this. Generally, we don't follow these unilateral sanctions imposed by one or two countries. We only follow sanctions if it is imposed by UN or by FATF, not by US or not by European countries. They are doing it for their interests. This does not suit our interests. India is here to protect its national interests, not American interests. So India put its foot down and said, we are bypassing the sanctions, but to ensure your interests are also protected, we are dropping IPI project. So instead of IPI pipeline, US offered TAPI pipeline to India. That's how the TAPI project started. Right? We studied the TAPI pipeline. Instead of IPI, we opted for TAPI. This was a fair compromise for India. It wouldn't affect India much. But on critical issues like Chabahar port and oil imports, we put our foot down and India bypassed the sanctions. We continued our relations with Iran. Iran was very happy with India. Why? Because Iran needed the critical support. Its economy was taking the hit. All right, it needed big buyers of Iranian oil like India, China, Russia to continue the trade. These countries, they did the same by bypassing the American Western sanctions. We found new alternate payment systems. We routed money to different payment systems. We used a platform called Asian Clearing Union. All right, it's a financial transaction setup that is based out of Turkey in Istanbul. In Turkey, you have this facility called Asian Clearing Union that facilitates foreign transactions in alternate currencies other than the US dollar. So through Asian Clearing Union, for some months we continued the trade, we continued the payments without using the US dollars and using alternate currencies. But later, this route was also blocked by the US. US and Western countries blocked out the Asian Clearing Union as well, brought it under the sanctions. So it became increasingly difficult for Indian companies to trade with Iran, and the Indian government had to come out with innovative methods. That is when we designed a rupee-based payment system. See, Indian rupees are useless outside of India. It's not fully convertible. It's not a reserve currency, right? So no country will accept Indian rupees. It is as good as useless outside of India. So what India did was, you might have read about Vostro and Nostro accounts with regard to India-Russia relations. Something similar was done in this context. Iranian banks were allowed to open accounts in Indian banks. India would deposit the money in Indian rupees, and Iran or other Iranian companies could use the rupees within India to buy what they wanted. Iran also has a lot of import from India. They would be importing wheat, food commodities, engineering equipment, etc., drugs. So whatever they want, they can buy within India by using the rupees we are depositing in this account created for the Iranian government. All right. So such rupee-based alternate payment systems were worked out to bypass the sanctions. So Iran was happy with India and the strategic relations continued. But by this time, the tensions had increased so much that it appeared that a war might break out. Because Iran's economy was getting crippled day by day. And it was feared that Iran might retaliate either by attacking the movement of ships in Hormuz Strait or by sponsoring terror groups or by targeting Saudi Arabia or Israel. This would draw US into a bigger conflict, leading to a bigger war between US and Iran. So such tensions were increasing by 2013, 2014. The region was on the brink of war. By then, fortunately, mature minds prevailed. Negotiations took place, led by European countries. And a landmark agreement was worked out. The Iran nuclear deal was signed, or JCPOA. It was signed in 2015. JCPOA stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It's also called Iran nuclear deal. They both mean the same. It was worked out between Iran, P5+1 countries, and European Union. These are parties to JCPOA. These are the ones who signed the Iran nuclear deal. The Iranian government, P5 countries, your 5 permanent members of UNSC, plus one here refers to Germany. Germany acted as a mediator, and the European Union is also party to the deal. So Russia, China, France, UK, and Germany, they played a critical role in mediating between US and Iran. They didn't want a war here. No country wanted a war in this region. So European powers led by Germany, France, UK, and with the support of Russia and China, they negotiated the deal and brought US and Iran to talks and worked out this historic agreement called JCPOA. Under this agreement, under the Iran nuclear deal, Iran agreed to stop its uranium enrichment program, which would essentially halt its weapons program. All right, Iran gave a commitment, an international commitment was given that it will stop its enrichment facilities. It will shut down the enrichment centrifuge facilities to put a halt on its weapons project. It also agreed to hand over the existing stockpile to the European countries. Whatever fissile material had been created, right, the weapons grade uranium, this would be handed over to European countries under the monitoring of IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. And in return, European countries will provide assistance in peaceful nuclear applications to Iran. Is that clear? European countries through IAEA agreed to help Iran in generating electricity using nuclear material for medical treatment, for cancer treatment. All right, weapons grade uranium will be taken away by the European countries through IAEA, and peaceful nuclear applications will be supported in return. The technology, the material will be given by them, and the US will lift the sanctions which had crippled Iran's economy. This was the landmark Iran nuclear deal. So as the sanctions were lifted and as Iran halted its weapons program, it reduced the tensions. The high tensions that existed went down. This was the big relief for India. It was the biggest relief for India because we could freely continue our strategic ties with Iran. We had big investments in Chabahar port. We had taken up many other projects. Iran was crucial for INSTC corridor. Iran is crucial for Ashgabat agreement, which we have studied multiple times in previous classes. Iran is crucial for countering terrorism in the region. Iran is crucial to keep a check on Pakistan, on the Taliban. It is crucial for us to connect with Afghanistan and Central Asia. So Iran is absolutely critical for India. That is why India was extremely happy when the nuclear deal was worked out. We were very supportive of the deal. As the tensions came down, we no longer were under American pressure to limit our ties with Iran. So we went ahead and established full-fledged relations. We were looking to increase our investments. Like I said, we were looking to develop the Chabahar railway project. This was India's ambition, to build the Chabahar railway line, connecting the Chabahar port with the Afghan border, where India had already built a road in Afghanistan, the Zaranj-Dilaram road in Afghanistan. All right, that's why we signed the 2017 trilateral agreement to operationalize Chabahar port. India went ahead, signed this important agreement with Iran and a friendly Afghan government which existed back then. The three countries signed an agreement to utilize Chabahar port to operationalize a trade route between India and Afghanistan. This route became functional as well. This was the biggest achievement for India. If things had been normal in Iran and Afghanistan, we would have continued this, we would have extended this to Central Asia by now. But everything has been disrupted and destroyed because the deal did not last for 3 years. The deal lasted just until 2018. The next American president, Donald Trump, he quit the Iran nuclear deal. Donald Trump, who was perceived to be very close to the right wing in Israel, the conservative factions in Israel, right? Israel always hates Iran. It's looking for ways to undermine Iran, especially the conservative right Jewish lobby, right? They managed to put a lot of pressure on the US and the right wing in Israel have been very close. And Donald Trump was guided by this, quit the Iran nuclear deal. Without a valid reason, US quit the nuclear deal, thus creating chaos in the region again. All right. See, IAEA was monitoring this entire process. IAEA had certified that Iran had stopped its enrichment program and weapons program. But Donald Trump made baseless allegations without any evidence. He alleged that Iran had broken the deal. He said US had intelligence to show that Iran was still building a bomb secretly and it was breaking the terms of the agreement. This was never justified because IAEA rejected this argument of the US, and European countries also said Iran is following the deal. American allies, Germany, US, France, they certified that Iran is still committed to the deal. Russia, China supported Iran, and IAEA also said that there is no signs of restarting of the nuclear weapons program. But US still broke away from the agreement and imposed crippling economic sanctions again in 2018. Around the same time, there were a series of covert attacks against Iran. One of Iran's top general was assassinated by US, which increased tensions between the two sides. And this was a nightmare for India. Everything we had built was under risk, was under threat. Is that clear? At this point, Donald Trump, who was very, very close to Prime Minister Modi, used the leverage and put tremendous pressure on India to zero out oil imports from Iran. This time, India wasn't given the option. Right? India was brought under tremendous pressure, and for the first time, we fell under American pressure and followed unilateral sanctions. Indian companies found it almost impossible to continue the trade. Plus, it was about India-US relations as well. So India zeroed out oil imports. From the second top supplier, Iran became a zero supplier of oil to India. We completely cut off oil imports, and naturally, this has angered Iran. Under American pressure, India cut off the oil imports, so Iran is extremely angry till date. That is why our relations have been broken today. All right? India-Iran relations have taken a big hit, and I'll tell you what happened. All the projects in Iran are under risk. Chabahar port is still operated by an Indian company, but this is according to an old contract. Once this expires, Iran may not extend this again. It has dropped India from the Chabahar railway project. India has been thrown out of this project. Is that clear? India has been dropped from this critical railway project, without which we can't correctly link Chabahar port with the Zaran-Dilaram highway in Afghanistan. Our strategic relations have been affected, and Iran has been taking a side with Pakistan on critical issues like Kashmir at UN and OIC. Obviously, if India works with US, Iran will work with Pakistan. That is how it will work. Now, this is what happens when you don't follow an independent foreign policy. If you compromise the autonomy, the strategic autonomy of your foreign policy, right? This is exactly what happens. Your core national interests will get compromised. India's national interests in Iran have been compromised because of the American pressure on India. Is that clear? Only Chabahar port has been exempted from American law called CAATSA. CAATSA is American law that stands for Countering America's Adversaries to Sanctions Act. It's a law passed by the US Congress and the Senate, under which three adversaries of US have been recognized. That's Russia, North Korea, and Iran. These three are recognized by US through a law as the adversaries of US. They have been targeted by primary sanctions. They've been hit with a set of sanctions targeting key sectors like oil and defense. It prohibits other countries from trading with them. If they trade with Russia, North Korea, or Iran in these sectors, they will also be punished with secondary sanctions. Let's say if a particular country were to continue importing oil from Iran, or if a certain country were to import weapons from Russia, even those third countries will be hit with secondary sanctions by the US under the CAATSA law, right? But under CAATSA, we have got an exemption for Chabahar port. The US has given an exemption only for Chabahar port, so Indian company can operate this for the next few years. But given the state of relations today, Iran may not extend this contract. Iran has already dropped India out of Chabahar railway project. All right, it has raised the Kashmir issue with Pakistan, supported Pakistan at UN and OIC. When the Citizenship Amendment Act controversy broke out, Iran supported Pakistan's position. So clearly, Iran has become quite hostile to India. Our relations have taken a hit. It has been affected. Is that clear? But recently in Iran, there have been massive protests within the country. You might have seen last year, a particular woman was unfortunately killed in custody after being detained by Iran's notorious morality police. Iran being a conservative country, it enforces the strict Sharia law, right? Where there's a very strict dress code, social conduct that is enforced especially on women. So gender rights are massively violated in Iran. The morality police, right, has been given complete authority to enforce the dress code and the social conduct. Even a slight deviation from the dress code and the social conduct, you'll be punished extremely in Iran. So one particular woman, Mahsa Amini, she had been detained for a so-called violation of the dress code by the morality police, and she died in custody. This apparently was because of torture. There have been many such incidents in the past where women or others have been held by Iranian agencies. They have been tortured and killed in custody. Iran security agencies like IRGC, they are notorious for their use of violence. IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, it's the supreme security agency of Iran, functions as a special force and as well as an intelligence agency. So for many years, there have been a lot of human rights violations, gender rights violations happening in Iran. But this incident became a trigger for a massive popular protest in Iran. So last year, for several months, we saw an uprising where Iranian youth, Iranian protesters, they rose up in rebellion against the Shia clerics, against the Ayatollah, against the Iranian government, against Iranian security agencies. These protests have been met with force. Hundreds of civilians have been detained and killed and injured. A lot of innocent people have been killed. At least more than a few hundred have been killed in these protests. And it has led to the destabilization of Iran. In this entire controversy, India has taken a neutral stand. We haven't interfered. We haven't taken a position here. Western countries are using this to target Iran. They're supporting the protesters, asking for a regime change. But India is not doing this. We are remaining neutral. We haven't officially said anything about the crisis in Iran. We haven't supported the Iranian government, neither the protesters. In order to maintain our whatever relations exist between Iran and India, we have taken this neutral stand, and that again shows the caution that India is exercising. We don't want to interfere here. It's an internal matter of Iran, an internal issue of Iran. But recently the issue came up again when India was hosting the Raisina dialogue just last month at the start of March. It's hosted by a think tank called ORF, Observer Research Foundation. So this think tank, which hosts the Raisina dialogue with Ministry of External Affairs, it had released a promotional video to promote the event. A promo ad had been released on YouTube. This video contained a small clipping of Iran's prime minister with Iranian protesters. There was an image because the Iranian women who were protesting, they shaved off their heads, they cut off their hair as a mark of protest against the dress code. This was a symbolic protest against the authoritarian rule of the Shia clerics. These images became very popular around the world. So such an image was used in this ad where women were cutting off their hair as a protest. Along with the protesters' image, Iranian president's image was also added. It was just a 2-second clip, right? In this entire ad, this clip was hardly 2 seconds. But Iranian embassy, which saw the video, right, retaliated against India, and it cut off the foreign minister's visit, which was supposed to happen a few weeks back. Iranian foreign minister was supposed to participate in the Raisina dialogue. He was coming to India. This was a big development for India. India was waiting for this opportunity to repair our relations, which has been damaged. But because of this incident involving Raisina dialogue and this ad, where protesters of Iran and the president were showing the same clip, the Iranian embassy protested and rejected the event, and the foreign minister's visit was cancelled at the last minute. All right. So this again shows how delicate India-Iran relations have become. It's become a very delicate relationship. All right. So please take a look at the maps I've added at the end. These are projects that we've already studied, right? We have seen the Chabahar project, the Zaranj Dilaram Road, INSTC project, Ashgabat agreement, the Haji Gak railway line, which we were planning because Haji Gak is an iron ore mine. We had won the license from Afghan government to mine iron ore at Haji Gak. We had very grand ambitions to build this railway line along with the road to connect this with Chabahar port and bring iron ore to India. Now all these plans are ruined. They stand cancelled as of now. Iran has dropped India out of this railway project. We only operate the Chabahar port, but things are very uncertain as of now because it's not just India-Iran relations. It's about what's happening in Afghanistan. Since Taliban took over, we don't know what will happen to these Indian projects. India-Taliban are reaching out today. There are some talks taking place between India-Taliban, but we don't know what the future holds for these countries. So it's become a very volatile region. We're not sure about India's interests. So essentially, our interests have been compromised. It's a very challenging environment for India in Iran, Afghanistan, and the region around it. All right. So this completes our complete discussion on the West Asia region. This is more than enough. Trust me. I've actually gone a little beyond the syllabus so that you have full clarity on this topic. These 4 countries are enough. Don't focus on anything else. It will not come as a question. Whatever facts we have discussed, whatever groupings, exercises, initiatives, those are important for your prelims. But the analysis, what we have covered is enough for your mains, even for an essay topic. There can be an essay on India-West Asia relations. There can be an essay on West Asia geopolitics, how it affects India. Right? That's why I've spent considerable time here, right, without cutting any corners. We've tried to cover this as comprehensively as possible. So now, let's take a short break. Let's take a break. We'll come back in around 15 minutes. We'll come back by 8:10. And then I'll be starting with the next topic, India, Central Asia. Hello everyone, welcome back to the session. First, let me take a look at your questions and doubts. Then I'll be starting with India and Central Asia. Payal is asking, sir, in recent times, is there any solution to restore India-Iran relations? Please suggest your views and please discuss it. See, definitely there are opportunities for India-Iran to rebuild the relationship, to repair the damage that has happened. One, Iran also has to scale down its nuclear weapons program. Iran has to ensure it abides by the terms of the nuclear agreement. Because as long as Iran continues on this path, it becomes difficult for India as well. At the same time, India should also conduct an independent policy with Iran, not fall under American pressure. Historically, we have never followed unilateral sanctions. We've always maintained an independent foreign policy. This is something India should do. We have to reach out to Iran, rebuild the relations to an extent, while ensuring Iran also doesn't restart the nuclear program. This is what is needed. The effort is not just from India. Iran is also on the wrong here. If Iran scales down the nuclear program, the questions will not come up. It will be easier for countries like India to work with Iran. So both the sides have to take up that initiative. Currently, it is missing, but definitely there are opportunities. For example, in Afghanistan, there is a common interest for India and Iran to cooperate again, because there could be a rise of extremism, and that could threaten both India and Iran. There are many economic opportunities in the region. I'll discuss few connectivity projects again when we look at Central Asia. There are a lot of opportunities here where India and Iran can actually work together. So definitely these opportunities have to be used by both India and Iran. Rishabh is asking, unlike China, why India doesn't go for reverse engineering and build this kind of defense equipment and UAVs. See, today India's defense industry, the indigenous defense industry, is thriving. It's much better than what it was before. In the last 20 years, 30 years, India has made a lot of progress in the defense domain. But of course, we're still lagging behind. We lack the strong defense base, the indigenous defense ecosystem. That is what is being done. It's a long-term effort. As of now, yes, we were import dependent. Even now, we are import dependent for our weapons and defense platforms. But slowly and gradually, we are moving away from the dependency. Today, you have a vibrant defense ecosystem in India, which is taking root. It will take some time. It's a long-term effort. But until that happens, until our domestic defense industry becomes self-reliant, we will have to be dependent on foreign imports as well. Any other question? Okay, don't worry, I'll come back to it. Let's continue with the discussion. Let's start with India's relations with Central Asia. Just give me a second. There appears to be something blocking the visual. Yeah. Okay. So now let's start with another important region, that is Central Asia. But it's a very small topic. Here we need to understand why Central Asia is important. What kind of links, relations do we have with Central Asia? What are the current relations? What are the current initiatives that have been taken? This topic is very, very important for our exams because last year, the first India Central Asia Summit took place. The first India Central Asia Summit was held last year. And hence, the topic in itself becomes very important. Now, let me help you understand where exactly Central Asia is located. You can see this region which is highlighted. This is Central Asia. All right. All these countries that you see today, these Central Asian countries, they were all part of the Soviet Republic. before 1991, during the Cold War period, when the Soviet Union existed, all the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, all these Central Asian countries were part of the Soviet Republic. They were part of the Soviet Union. But when Cold War ended and Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991, these countries broke apart. These republics, Soviet republics, they broke apart and they all became independent nations. The same happened here in Eastern Europe. That's how Ukraine was born. That's how the Baltic states were born, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. All these were part of the Soviet Union, but as Soviet Union collapsed and disintegrated in 1991, these East European and Central Asian countries, they broke apart and became independent countries. With this important region, India actually has historical civilizational ties. I'll explain this point by point. I'll go in a step-by-step manner, and all the relevant points are there in the slides. All right? I'll go in a step-by-step manner. We'll talk about the historical civilizational links. We'll talk about how relations have developed, why the region is important, what is the current relations. And the relevant points have been added in the PPT as well. Please go through that. If you look at the historical ancient links with India and Central Asia, we actually have a very strong relationship. Buddhism, for example, is a common link. Buddhism traveled from India towards Central Asia. India and Central Asia were connected through the ancient Silk route. The ancient trading route was a common link connecting the Indian civilization and the Indian empires with the kingdoms and empires in Central Asia. We have a historical connection here. See, India's cultural influence had spread to Afghanistan as well in that era. It had reached the Hindu Kush mountain ranges. And India's cultural influence had gone beyond the Hindu Kush towards today's Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. In this region, even today, you find certain influences that can be traced back to the Indian civilization. So Buddhism is one connect. Islam is another connection. They provide the religious cultural link. The Mughal Empire, the Delhi Sultanate in India, they trace their origin to Central Asia. Babur, for example, he came from the Fergana Valley. All right, Babur belonged to the slave dynasty. Right, he came from Central Asia to establish one of India's most predominant empires. The Fergana Valley is a strategic region here in Central Asia. It's present at the junction of Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Is that clear? Even today, Fergana Valley is a very, very important location. At the junction of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan is where you find the strategic region called Fergana Valley. That's where Babur came from, down to India and established one of the most important empires in India. So we have a historical connection here. There was trade between the Indian and Central Asian region. There was an exchange of culture, an exchange of ideas. This is something that is clearly linking India and Central Asia even today. All right. Now see, this region is blessed with immense resources. This region that you saw in the map, it's one of the most resource-rich regions in the world. All right. I'll tell you what kind of resources are present. That is something that attracts India today. But the only problem is the region is landlocked. I hope you saw the map clearly. All the Central Asian countries are surrounded by land. But some of you might point out, but sir, how about Caspian Sea? I see a water body here. This is Caspian Sea. But Caspian Sea is not exactly an open sea. It's an endorheic lake, one of the largest lakes in the world. Caspian Sea itself is landlocked. If you observe the map, from Central Asia, there is no connection to an open sea, like the Mediterranean, for example. Is that clear? So there is no direct link here with open seas. And this happens to be a geographical limitation of the region. It's a landlocked region with limited connectivity to India. The lack of connectivity is the biggest hurdle in the relationship. See, we actually have fantastic political diplomatic relations with Central Asian countries. This has existed since the Soviet era. Even during Soviet period, India actually had very good relations with these republics. In fact, many of the defense factories of the Soviet Union, which produced the MiG fighter jets and other weapon platforms it has given to India, they were produced in today's Central Asia. So since 1960s, 70s, 80s itself, India has been working with the region, with Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. I told you about the military bases that we gained access to in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, right? So India has been working with this region from a long time. So when they became independent countries in 1991, automatically very close diplomatic relations were started. There's a lot of trust between India and the Central Asian countries, all the 5 Central Asian countries. India is investing heavily as well in these countries. We are ready to invest. They are ready to share the resources with India, exploit the resources jointly with India. But the problem is it is landlocked. There is no connectivity. There's no direct link or connection between India and Central Asia. This remains the biggest hurdle for our relations. However, the other powers, especially China has made a lot of inroads into Central Asia. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, China has built a series of roads, railway lines, and oil gas pipelines. And it has a predominant position in Central Asian countries. Also, for China, Central Asia is very crucial because it wants to stabilize the Xinjiang province. The Xinjiang province shares borders with Central Asia. This is where the Uyghurs have rebelled against China, the atrocities China has committed against Uyghur Muslims, and some of the radicals have set up a terror group called ETIM, East Turkestan Islamic Movement, and they are waging a war against China. This terror group of Xinjiang is linked with Central Asian groups and other Afghanistan, Pakistan groups. These radical terror groups have connections between them. So for China, it's extremely important to remain dominant in Central Asia to stabilize the Xinjiang province. So China has made massive economic investments, invested billions of dollars to its Belt and Road Initiative, and it's one of the most important powers in Central Asia. Russia, of course, the successor state of Soviet Union, is extremely influential. Other than China, it is Russia which is the most influential power in this region. Russia has very good political diplomatic relations with all the countries. It has a strong military presence as well. Russia still maintains troops in some Central Asian countries. If there are any problems here, Russia can even now send troops to deal with the threat. The United States and European countries have also exerted their military influence. The US actually has few military bases in Central Asia. US also has gotten closer to Central Asian countries because they're all interested in the resources of Central Asia. Even the other powers, the middle powers like Turkey, Australia, Japan, even Pakistan, they're all eager to exploit Central Asian resources. Iran, the other West Asian powers, they're all very interested in Central Asia mainly because of its resources. So today you witness a game, a great geopolitical game between all these powers. It's a great game that goes on, where all these powers are competing for geopolitical influence. So India has to withstand this competition. We have to be a part of this great game, retain our unique influence, and maintain our close relations with these countries. That is the challenge for us. We have good relations. We are looking to make investments. We've already made some investments as well. They're ready to work with India. They're very eager to work with India. The problem is lack of connectivity. All right, this is the reason why India's priority here is to connect with Central Asia. In fact, our foreign policy towards Central Asia is called Connect Central Asia policy. Just like we have Luty's Actis policy, Sagar Doctrine. Similarly, we have Connect Central Asia policy towards this region. Here, the important word is connect, because we are seeking physical connectivity, transport connectivity. That is missing. That is the biggest roadblock in the relationship. Just take a look at the resources present here. These countries are blessed with immense resources. Now, this could possibly be important for your prelims. There could be a prelims question on the resources present in Central Asia. It is said that almost every element of the periodic table is found in these 5 Central Asian countries. You look at Kazakhstan, the largest Central Asian country. It has the world's second largest reserves of uranium. If you remember, while talking about Australia, I told you Australia has the world's largest resource. Right? Australia has the world's largest reserve of uranium, and Kazakhstan has the world's second largest reserves. And it is the world's largest producer. This is the reason why India and Kazakhstan have signed a civil nuclear agreement. We have a civil nuclear agreement with Kazakhstan because we look to source uranium from Kazakhstan to power our civilian nuclear program. Look at Uzbekistan. It is blessed with precious resources like hydrocarbon reserves, oil and gas. Even Kyrgyzstan has few uranium reserves, gold. There are many precious minerals and rare earth elements that are present. All right, and many precious minerals as well, including iron ore, coal, hydrocarbons, gold, lead, zinc, molybdenum. All these precious metals and resources are found here. Turkmenistan is blessed with natural gas reserves. Again, I had mentioned this point. If you remember, we spoke about Tapi pipeline while talking about Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Turkmenistan has the world's 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world. That's why the Tapi pipeline project is very important for India. Tajikistan is blessed with huge hydropower potential along with many other minerals. All right. There is gold and hydroelectric power, which is a key resource for Kyrgyzstan. This is how the resources are distributed here. And obviously, India is very eager to exploit these resources. They have great hydropower potential, especially Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, which are located in the Fergana Valley region. Right? It's just to the north of the Hindu Kush mountain ranges. They have hydrocarbons, oil and gas, they have uranium, many other precious minerals. This is something India needs to power India's growth. Right? So this is the primary focus of India, to have good relations with them, to build on our cultural relations. Soft power diplomacy has been given a lot of priority here because India enjoys a natural soft power in this region. Not just because of the historical cultural links, but even in modern times. Indian art forms are very, very popular here, especially Bollywood, for example. Bollywood movies, Bollywood music is extremely popular in Central Asia. This dates back to the Soviet era. In the Soviet Union, right, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the old age Hindi movies, Hindi songs were widely popular in Soviet Union. Right? This was seen even in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, stretching all the way to Greece, till Central Europe. This whole region was heavily influenced by Indian movies and music. All right? Especially some classic songs of the 60s, 70s, 80s. They're still very popular in this region. Even now, if you go to this region, you'll find cafes, restaurants which still play the music. Every generation, they've grown up listening to these legendary songs, which became a cult in all these parts of the world. Along with Bollywood movies and music, Indian classical art forms, especially Indian classical dance and yoga, they are widely popular in the region. There are many young students from Central Asia who come to India to study Indian classical dance forms like Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kuchipudi, and the others. Yoga is widely popular. A lot of Central Asians, the youth especially, they come to India, right? They learn yoga. They're very interested in spirituality as well. So there's a strong cultural link here, and India enjoys a natural soft power influence. This is what we leverage in our diplomacy as well. Our embassies here, they work on these links. They popularize Indian cinema. They promote Indian art forms. And in fact, the International Yoga Day, which India got designated from the UN, is very proactively marked and celebrated in Central Asian countries. So there's a natural cultural link, a soft power influence, and we want to build upon this soft power. Make the right economic investments. Also build close defense and security relations, along with establishing connectivity. These are the priorities for India under its Connect Central Asia policy. Leverage the cultural ties, the historical and modern cultural links we have, build upon the soft power influence, give economic assistance to these countries, make investments in their infrastructure, because these countries are still a little backward. They're struggling with their socio-economic development. They're struggling with creating infrastructure. So this is where India remains very, very influential. We seek to make these investments. We are providing a lot of assistance to these countries. Plus, the region faces a number of security challenges. Since it borders Afghanistan, Pakistan, the terrorism, radicalism has spilled over into Central Asia. In Central Asia as well, there are a few radical groups, extremist groups. This is a common concern. We share common threats, and that is why defense and security also becomes a priority. Also, Central Asia is very vulnerable to climate change and environment degradation. So these are some areas where India can assist the Central Asian countries. The landscape here is such that it's very prone to the impact of disasters. The region is affected by a lot of disasters, and climate change is aggravating the impact. So India and Central Asia have a common ground here as well, in the environment domain as well, to work with each other and to assist each other. Afghanistan is a common concern, right? Afghanistan has been destabilized since 1979. It's been almost 40 plus years. And the destabilization in Afghanistan is affecting both India and the Central Asian countries. So both India and Central Asia have a common objective to stabilize Afghanistan, to bring stability, to ensure there's peace in Afghanistan, because only then can India and Central Asia collaborate. That is why projects such as the Chabahar Port project is absolutely critical for this relationship. Without Chabahar Port, there is no other way for India to connect with Central Asia. Is that clear? Yes, there is Pakistan, of course. If Pakistan gives transit access, we can link with Afghanistan and Central Asia, but that is unlikely to happen. Pakistan has given transit access only on few instances. That too for Afghan trucks to come to the Indian border, pick up the goods and go back. For India, it has never given transit access. All right? Only when Afghanistan was going through a crisis, when there was massive food shortage, when Taliban took over recently, Pakistan had allowed Afghan trucks to come to Pakistani territory to the Indian border, pick up the food supplies India was giving and go back to Afghanistan. But for India, the transit access has never been given. Even if Pakistan gives transit access, it will not be sustainable because of the relations between India and Pakistan. Right? We can't rely on it. Pakistan may cut off the transit access at any point of time. So the only route for us is through Iran. Chabahar port is that's why crucial for India. And all the other projects, INSTC, Ashgabat Agreement, all these other projects we discussed, they are equally important because via Iran we can connect with Afghanistan and Central Asia. So this is what India is striving to achieve. If we have to achieve our objectives in Central Asia, our ties with Iran and Afghanistan are absolutely critical. Right now, this is the problem. In Afghanistan, there is complete destabilization. We don't know what will happen in the future since Taliban has taken over. And our ties with Iran has been affected as we just studied. So this has crippled our approach towards Central Asia. This is the challenge we are facing here. That's why it's so important to rebuild our relations with Iran. As I told you, we are witnessing a great game in Central Asia where multiple external powers are competing for influence. Russia is a traditional power, the most dominant influence here. China has built a strong influence. There's US, European countries, other middle powers, and India. So India has to find a space for itself. We have to compete with all these other powers to retain our influence in Central Asia. All right. Now let me take you to the primary interests of India. Point number one, Central Asia is like our extended neighborhood. It's an extension of South Asia. As you saw in the map, Central Asia is located to the north of South Asia, above Afghanistan and Pakistan. So it's a part of an extended neighborhood, and hence it deserves a priority because any adverse developments here will have an impact on South Asia. It will affect Afghanistan, Pakistan, and it will in turn affect India. You can't think Central Asia is far away from India. We need not bother about this region. This region is extremely crucial for our strategic and national security interests because it borders Afghanistan and Pakistan. It gives us another route to access Afghanistan and Pakistan, right? So whatever happens here in this belt directly has implications for India. That is why India was initially against the withdrawal of the American troops in Afghanistan. When US was looking to exit Afghanistan and it started pulling out the troops, India was not okay with it because we were worried about the security situation. Because the presence of Western troops had at least kept a check on terrorism. The US and NATO forces, they were targeting Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and other terror groups which in turn have links with Lashkar and Jaish-e-Mohammed. This was good news for India because these Western countries were stabilizing Afghanistan at least to an extent. But now that they have quit, they have run away from the country without even consulting India, our interests are at stake. That's why we have opened our own talks with Afghanistan today. We are directly talking to the Taliban, and if this succeeds, if somehow we are able to strike a deal with Taliban and establish a basic relationship, and if we are to repair our ties with Iran, then we can ensure we have good connectivity with Central Asia. That is why we are pursuing a regional solution for Afghanistan. Since US and Western countries have abandoned Afghanistan, what you need is a regional solution. I don't know if you know this. As soon as Taliban took over the country in 2021, India held a conference of national security advisors from the region. We invited the NSAs of all the neighboring countries. Right? India's NSA, India's National Security Advisor, took the lead and invited the NSAs of all the neighbors of Afghanistan, Iran, Russia, China, Central Asian countries, and Pakistan. They were all invited. So India is very interested in stabilizing the region, and we want to find a regional solution for this. Russia is already leading those efforts. So India has to find a way to work with China as well, because even China has a common objective, at least with regard to terrorism. Because the radicalism here affects Xinjiang province. It's a concern for China. So there is a potential here for these countries to work together, maybe with Pakistan, maybe with Iran as well. It's a very unique opportunity. Yes, it's challenging, no doubt. There are a lot of difficulties, but there is a possibility here for these countries to work together to find a regional solution to stabilize Afghanistan. Without stabilizing Afghanistan, our ties with Central Asia will not improve. We will not be able to establish connectivity. This has been our focus since the last 30 years. Since the last 3 decades, our entire focus is on connecting with Central Asia and stabilizing Afghanistan. All right, these are the two priorities. To connect with Central Asia, we have to stabilize Afghanistan. These are two priorities for India when we look at the Central Asian countries. That's why the policy itself is called Connect Central Asia Policy. All right. Now let's see what kind of trade routes we are pursuing. Why connectivity via Afghanistan and Iran is crucial. If you look at the map again, if you go back to the slide, the initial slide, and look at the map, the only alternate route between India and Central Asia is via Russia. This is a very long, impractical route. Let's say we were to send goods from India to Central Asia. It has to go all the way to Europe. That is through Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Atlantic, and reach Western Europe. From here, it has to reach Russia. And from Russia, it should be brought to Central Asia. This is a impossible route. It's a impractical route. The time, the cost will be too expensive. It's not feasible. It's not a viable route. That's the reason why it's extremely important to connect via Afghanistan and Iran. That's the only option for India. See, if Pakistan had not captured Gilgit-Baltistan and POK, then we ourselves would have had a direct link with Afghanistan. I've told you this in many classes before as well. I've showed you the map. Since Pakistan is an illegal occupation of these territories of India, we don't have that direct connection with Afghanistan. Or else, let's say if this hadn't happened, India would have direct connectivity with the Wakhan corridor. Through Jammu and Kashmir to Gilgit-Baltistan, we would have been connected with Wakhan corridor of Afghanistan. From there, we could have connected with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. But on the ground, this does not exist since 1947 because Pakistan has illegally captured these territories. So all the routes are shut off. The route via Europe and Russia is impractical. Through Pakistan, it's not possible. Pakistan is not giving us transit access. The other area where we're supposed to have a border with Afghanistan has been occupied by Pakistan. There's no other way to take it back apart from fighting a war with Pakistan. So all these options are ruled out. The only viable option is to connect via Afghanistan and Iran. All right. Now, let's see what measures have we taken. Just a summary of the measures to understand how we are trying to trade with the region and establish connectivity with the region. This is nothing new actually. We've already covered all these topics while talking about Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan. I've already discussed all these points. I'll just summarize this and then we'll talk about the India Central Asia Summit and we'll close the chapter by talking about some important regional groupings. We shouldn't leave out any important organization, especially for your prelims. So there are two important groupings focused on the region, SCO and Eurasian Economic Union. Let's cover these two and we'll talk about India Central Asia Summit. So these projects that we have pursued, the Chabahar Port project, INSTC project, Ashgabat Agreement, these are the lifelines. These are the only options we have, the alternatives that we have. Let me just jump here to the maps. Yeah. Remember we spoke about Ashgabat Agreement, how it allows India to work with Pakistan, Iran, Oman, and these Central Asian countries to create a transport corridor. Ashgabat Agreement actually has great potential if everything works out. Right? It will connect Central Asia with the Persian Gulf and further with South Asia. This triangle, this multimodal connectivity will really boost trade and economic opportunities for all the countries. It allows to work with Pakistan and Afghanistan as well. They will all have an interest because of the economic advantages that they're going to gain. So this has great potential if things stabilize in the region. Similarly, we had seen the map of INSTC. I had shown you the map of Chabahar Port, how it links with Afghanistan. These are the key projects for India, the only viable route for India to link with Afghanistan and further into Central Asia. So recently, we have been reaching out to Central Asian countries to get closer to these countries. All right. In the last 30 years, very close diplomatic relations have been built. And recently, Prime Minister Modi visited all the 5 Central Asian countries. It was actually a historic visit. In 2015, at Ufa in Russia, the BRICS summit was taking place, the BRICS meeting between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. During this meet, India not only met with all Central Asian leaders, following this meeting, Prime Minister Modi paid a personal visit to all the 5 Central Asian countries together. This was the first time an Indian leader was covering all 5 Central Asian countries. Especially since then, the relations have been elevated. At the highest level, attention has been paid, and this is an effort of the last 30, 40 years. It's not happened overnight. It's taken a lot of consistent effort of India to maintain these close relations with Central Asia. So we've accelerated this engagement. We are working very closely with SCO and other groupings and other projects to take forward our ties with Central Asian countries. The Tapi pipeline played a big role. Right now, the construction has stopped because of Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. But if it is resumed and if the project is completed, it will actually connect us with Turkmenistan. It will allow us to play a role with Pakistan and Afghanistan to stabilize the region. SCO is another great platform which can help in stabilizing the region, in building the relations of India with the countries present over here. So that is why it's in this context, we should look at the recent summit that was hosted by India in January 2022. For your exams, this is the most important topic. All right. The developments at the recent summit, India Central Asia Summit, can be a main question. Or there can be a broad question on India's approach to Central Asia. What interests does India have? What challenges are we facing? Such questions can come. All right. Last year, during the Republic Day celebrations, India had invited all the 5 Central Asian leaders to be the chief guests for the Republic Day parade. You know, I've already told you that this is a symbolic gesture from India. Every year, we invite a foreign dignitary to grace the occasion as the chief guest of India. It's not just a ceremonial event. It actually has a lot of diplomatic significance. The country we choose each year will receive the highest priority in our foreign policy for that 1 year. So last year, all the Central Asian leaders, all the 5 leaders were invited. They had accepted India's invite. They were supposed to travel and visit India personally. They were supposed to attend the Republic Day parade in person and hold a summit with India. This would have been the first India Central Asia summit. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, at the last minute, the visit was cancelled. If you remember last year, the Omicron variant had broken out, leading to a new wave of infections and bringing back some lockdown restrictions. Right? So as a result, the leaders couldn't visit India. The visit was called off. But however, the summit went ahead. We held a virtual summit. A virtual summit was held, which has firmly established India Central Asia relations. This will happen regularly going forward. It will be held every 2 years. Please note down this point. Important for your prelims as well. Every 2 years, India Central Asia will hold the summit. All the 6 countries will meet. India and the 5 Central Asian countries. They are even setting up a permanent headquarters for this in New Delhi. India Central Asia Secretariat is coming up in New Delhi to lead this initiative, to maintain the constant engagement, to hold the summit and follow up on the initiatives and implement them. They have agreed to hold high-level interaction every now and then between foreign ministers, culture ministers, trade ministers. There will be frequent exchanges, including frequent interaction between armed forces and intelligence agencies. We actually have military exercises with Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, then Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan as well. With these 4 Central Asian countries, we have military exercises regularly with them. We share intelligence with them. We work together in counterterrorism. So regular high-level interactions will happen. All key ministers will keep visiting each other at official capacity as well, at the secretary level. Very close official relations will be maintained. There will be frequent visits and meetings. And every 2 years, there will be a summit-level interaction where the Indian PM will meet all the leaders of Central Asia and hold the India Central Asia Summit. During last year's summit, the key areas of collaboration have been identified. A proper structure is being given. A proper structure is being given to the India Central Asia relationship. They'll focus on trade and connectivity, the central pillar of the relationship. They'll look to revive connectivity and establish close trade relations. India will assist them in development cooperation. We will give them development assistance through line of credits and loans. We'll share our expertise and knowledge as well in improving education, healthcare, agriculture, rural development, climate change, disaster management. In all these areas, India as a leader will help these countries. These countries are actually facing a lot of challenges in socio-economic development. Next, defense and security is a top focus mainly to deal with terrorism, radicalism, and organized crime. Organized crime is also very rampant here because Afghan drugs are trafficked into Central Asia as well. Right? Drug trafficking, arms smuggling is a major concern here. So, defense and security is a priority to deal with terrorism, radicalism, and organized crime. And finally, building close people-to-people relations, building upon the cultural ties that we have with Central Asian countries. So, during the last year's summit, they have established a round table on energy and connectivity. A separate platform has been created for a dialogue on energy supplies. How India can extract oil and gas from these countries. How we can establish connectivity with this region. A separate dialogue has been set up for this. A joint working group of senior officials for Afghanistan and the usage of Chabahar Port to connect with Afghanistan and Central Asia. Central Asian countries understand the importance of Chabahar Port and Iran. They know without Iran they can't connect with Persian Gulf and with the Indian Ocean. Right? For that, Chabahar Port is critical, which is built by India. So they set up a joint working group to look at the Afghan situation, to stabilize Afghanistan. They'll hold a frequent dialogue on the situation in Afghanistan and how they can collaborate. They'll try to rebuild ties with Iran and utilize Chabahar Port to link all these countries, India with Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. Buddhist diplomacy has received a lot of attention during last year's summit. Even today, there are many Buddhist sites in Central Asian countries. They trace their links to India. So we're looking to revive our Buddhist heritage, project our Buddhist cultural influence. So frequent exhibitions will be organized, visits will be organized, plus joint counter-terror exercises are being planned. As I told you, we have military exercises. For example, there's an exercise called Dastek between India and Uzbekistan. Okay, this is just one example. Similarly, we have military exercises with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan as well. A youth delegation will be chosen every year to visit each of those countries. Around 100 youth will be chosen from Central Asia. They'll be brought to India for special training and special courses. They'll be taken across India to witness India's cultural diversity. They'll be given opportunities to study in India, to live in India, to pick up Indian art forms. Right? So such cultural interactions will be promoted. And they even came out with a joint declaration at the end of this. All right, everything has been put on paper. It's not a mere discussion, not just a verbal commitment. They put it down on paper, brought out a joint declaration, and made a commitment to live up to this expectation. So for the first time, you're witnessing a structured relationship between India and Central Asia. Right? First, PM Modi visited all the countries together. Then all leaders were invited to India, and we planned the first India Central Asia Summit. So now this will happen every 2 years, and in between there will be frequent high-level interaction. They'll be looking at all these important issues that I highlighted, and there's a permanent secretariat as well in Delhi to guide India-Central Asia relations. If you can remember these 7 to 8 points, you can write a good answer for India-Central Asia Summit. I really expect this topic to come for a question, maybe in prelims or in mains, right? So please go through the key developments that happened last year. All right. Next, I've given the basic facts about Ashgabat agreement here. We've studied this multiple times. When it was set up, when did India-Pakistan join? What are the advantages of joining this initiative? Who are the other countries involved? Right. So focus on these basic facts for your prelims. Other than this, there are two important groupings here. Apart from Ashgabat agreement, which is a transport connectivity project, there are two important groupings of the region: the Eurasian Economic Union and SEO. Both are important for your prelims, even maybe for your mains. India actually works closely with such groupings. The Eurasian Economic Union is a Russian initiative. It's a Russia-led initiative to protect and extend Russian influence in the region. See, Russia was the successor state to Soviet Union, right? Russia has always felt it lost its influence when Soviet Union broke apart. So to bring back the glory of the Soviet days, to expand Russian influence beyond Russian borders, Russia promoted a political and economic union called Eurasian Economic Union. To this grouping, Russia has promoted close ties with former Soviet states. It has sought close economic, political relations with East European countries which broke away from Russia, or the Soviet Union, and Central Asian countries that broke away from Soviet Union. Russia's vision is to bring all the former Soviet states under one economic union, create a free trade area to boost trade, connectivity, and cultural, economic, and diplomatic relations. So this was set up under the leadership of Russia, and Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia were the founding members. They even signed a treaty for this in 2014, and it came into force in 2015. In fact, this grouping is connected with Ukraine as well, the current Ukraine war. So UPSC might focus on this, asking you a basic question on Eurasian Economic Union. Who are the members? What is its objective? That is important for your exams. Because when Russia conceptualized this economic union, it proposed this idea back in 2000 itself. Russia badly wanted Ukraine to join this initiative. Russia wanted Ukraine to be a part of it. Ukraine is one of the biggest constituents of Soviet Republic, right? Looking at its economic potential, Russia obviously wanted Ukraine to be a part of it because Russia's biggest obsession has always been Ukraine amongst all the Soviet republics. But in Ukraine, a resistance was growing in early 2000. Even though there were pro-Russia factions and pro-Russian government, there were other factions who were pro-Western countries. The divide had clearly come up. So Ukraine resisted joining this economic union. When Russia finally launched this union, by this point, Ukraine had witnessed a revolution, the Euromaidan protests. The people of Ukraine who were pro-West and other politicians who were pro-West, they had protested against the pro-Russian government, and the pro-Russian leader was removed in 2014. In 2014, a pro-Russian government was brought down because of the Euromaidan protests. It was a revolution by the people of Ukraine and many political parties. They brought Ukraine out of Russian influence and started aligning Ukraine closely with Europe and US. They started considering signing a trade agreement with European Union, a proposal to join NATO. This is what angered Russia and triggered Russia to punish Ukraine. Russia started sponsoring a separatist war in eastern Ukraine. It captured, annexed the Crimean Peninsula, right? So when Ukraine rejected Russia's offer and got closer to European Union, it was considering a trade agreement with European Union. Russia finally formalized the plan, launched this economic union by bringing the other countries together. Later, Armenia and Kyrgyzstan also have joined the economic union. And today, it's one of the important economic groupings of this region, the Eurasia region. All right? Just look at the map. It'll give you a better picture. It's a Russian initiative along with Kazakhstan. They have brought together Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, and Belarus. Belarus is always a close ally of Russia. So these countries are part of the Eurasian Economic Union. Now, how is this relevant for India? India has very good relations with all of them. There is a proposal between India and Russia, and there is a proposed idea of a free trade agreement between India and the Eurasian Economic Union. It's just a proposal as of now, but we can definitely work on this. We actually have good relations with all these countries. We can only take this forward, build even better political diplomatic ties, and create a close economic engagement with these countries. Since it involves Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, it will automatically boost our influence in Central Asia. Plus, it will bring us closer to Russia, and India and Russia can jointly protect their influence, protect their interests as far as Central Asia is concerned. Right? Russia has been a great friend for India in every regard. So it's only natural for India and Russia to work together. So there is an opportunity here at this group where India can collaborate, maybe work out a free trade agreement or a special relationship with the Eurasian Economic Union. All right. So just for the basic facts, set up in 2014 through this treaty by Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia. Only 3 countries were part of it. It came into force in 2015. Then Armenia joined the group, and finally Kyrgyzstan also joined the group. These are the members of Eurasian Economic Union. Next, the last topic, SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. What is SCO? SCO is one of the most important political economic union. It's also a military grouping as well that is focused on Eurasia region with special attention on Central Asia. It's one of the most important regional groupings in the world. All right. It was started out in 1996. It was called the Shanghai Five. All right. 5 important countries of this region, they met at Shanghai and formed the Shanghai Five group that included China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. These 5 countries started the initiative. Initially, it was not called as SCO. SCO name was given later. In 1996, when it was set up, it was just the Shanghai Five group that was established through the Shanghai Pact. All right. The focus of the group is to build political relations between these countries, build close economic ties to exploit the resources of Central Asia, create connectivity as well, promote trade and connectivity, and focus on security issues. There is a clear military angle to it. It focuses on military cooperation, military exercises, counterterrorism, sharing of intelligence. So there is a security military dimension to it, along with the political and economic dimension. So such an important group was set up called the Shanghai Five, and later Uzbekistan also joined the group. Please remember this point. Uzbekistan was not there initially. It joined the group later, and the SCO charter was adopted. That is how Shanghai Cooperation Organization was born. Initially, it was called Shanghai Five. After Uzbekistan joined, the name had to be changed, and a new charter also was adopted, so it became SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This group is headquartered in Beijing. Please remember this, don't get confused. Just because it is named after Shanghai doesn't mean it's headquartered in Shanghai. It's named after Shanghai because it started at Shanghai, as Shanghai Five Group. But the secretariat, the headquarters is in Beijing. All right? Now, this group has seen a considerable expansion in the last few years. When Uzbekistan joined, it had 6 members. Today, there are 9 members in the group. India and Pakistan were admitted at the 2017 Astana Summit. During the Astana Summit in Kazakhstan, the membership of India-Pakistan was accepted. Is that clear? The membership of India-Pakistan was accepted. We were still observers back then. We only had observer status. We were given full-time membership in 2017. In 2018, we completed the process of joining the SCO. So from 2018, India-Pakistan are full-time members, and Iran, which was another important observer, has been admitted at the Dushanbe 2021 summit. At the Dushanbe summit in 2021, Iran was also admitted, and during last year's Samarkand summit, it has started the process of joining the SCO. So Iran is getting added as the 9th member. It is completing the process very soon, and in 2023 at Goa, Iran will participate for the first time as a full-time member. This is again another opportunity for India-Iran to rebuild their relationship. You can suggest SCO as a platform where India-Iran can work together. Now that Iran has become a full-time member, and since India is hosting this year's summit, remember this point, currently India is holding the presidency. We hold the chair of SCO for this year. So India is hosting the summit at Goa in a few months. This gives us a great opportunity to work with Iran, Pakistan, and all the major countries present in this region. That is why SCO is such an important grouping. All right, it brings together important 9 countries of the region. There are many important observer states and dialogue partners. There's Mongolia, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, even Cambodia is there, Turkey, Belarus. There are others like UAE and few other countries in the region. They're all showing interest in this important grouping. Some of them have observer status, some of them are dialogue partners. You never know, the group can expand further. There could be new members added. According to reports, Belarus is very interested in the membership. Turkey also is very interested in gaining a membership. If the group further expands, it will have great potential to transform the region economically. All right. So it has a lot of focus on trade, establishing connectivity through road, rail projects and pipelines. Potentially, it's a platform for us to collaborate with China as well. Trade and connectivity is a top priority here, along with disaster management, cultural relations. For example, during last year's summit, Varanasi has been chosen as the cultural capital of SCO. All right, cultural ties are being promoted under SCO. India's Varanasi has been chosen as a cultural center under the SCO summit. So from across SCO members and observer states, delegations will be brought to Varanasi to build our cultural links. Next, we have a very close counter-terror collaboration. There's a platform under SCO called RATS, R-A-T-S, Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure. Under RATS, the focus is on containing terrorism in the Afghanistan-Pakistan belt. All right. So here you have a platform where India, Russia, Pakistan, China, Central Asian countries, and now Iran can all work together to look at the issues of terrorism and radicalism. Maybe it's a platform where India, Pakistan can work together. Maybe we can put the right kind of influence and pressure on Pakistan by taking the help of the other countries. Like I said, it could be a platform where India, Iran might be able to collaborate, or a platform to build ties with other key countries like Mongolia, China, and the others. All right. There is focus on energy cooperation as well under SCO. They even have a military exercise. India also takes part in the military exercise. It's the only exercise where Indian and Pakistani troops are jointly participating. Even the Chinese troops. There's no other exercise where India, Pakistan, or India, China directly participate. Right? This is one platform where there's a military exercise involving all these arch rivals. So it could be a potential platform to resolve the issues and to promote growth and stability in the region. Since the main focus here is on Central Asia, it gives India a great opportunity to get closer to the Central Asian countries. So SCO happens to be a key platform for us to build these relations with Central Asia. All right. So if you know this, it's more than sufficient. The brief history and background, what interests do we have, what challenges are we facing, the current relations, the recent India Central Asia Summit, and these groupings, all the projects and the groupings. If you know this, it's more than enough for your prelims and your mains. Don't waste your time in reading about each country. India Kazakhstan relations, India Turkmenistan relations, India Tajikistan relations, not required. UPSC will not ask you that. So don't waste your time. Just stick to what we have discussed. Trust me, this is more than sufficient. Okay. So now let's see what questions you have. Let's take up all the doubts, and after that we'll proceed with the next topic. We'll move to the 2 big powers, USA and Russia. We'll try to cover India-US relations today. All right. So we'll take another couple of hours maybe to look at Russia and the United Nations, also the European Union. So first, let me answer your questions and doubts, and then we'll start with India-US. IR is actually revise everything because everything will be fresh in your mind. If you give a big gap, if you try to read IR 5-6 months down the line, you'll not remember. Immediately after the classes end, try to revise what you have studied. When you revise, make some additional points. Make a full-fledged notes for yourself and take the region-based approach that I've taken in class. It makes it easier for you. All right? And stick to what you're covered in class. That covers your static part of your syllabus. Rest comes from current affairs. You're reading newspapers, watching daily news analysis, listening to webinars. That will give you all the current affairs. So mix the static and the current affairs, then keep revising. Make a timetable, maybe once a month. Keep some time. Keep a couple of days for IR where you revise everything. If you do this regularly, trust me, you'll stay up to date and you'll not forget anything. Because it's not a factual subject. You can't simply mug up and by heart the points. You have to understand the analysis, the concepts. Right? That's why we are discussing everything in detail. If it was only factual discussion, I could have finished the class long back. The reason why we put an extra effort is because it's a mains-oriented subject. You have to develop your own opinion on these important issues and complicated issues. There could be an essay topic here. How will you write a 1,300-word essay without having an analytical thought, without having your own opinions about these topics? So that comes with revision, multiple rounds of revision with current affairs. So if you can implement this strategy, I'm sure you'll be able to master IR. Anubhav is asking, stopping oil import from Iran, was it a blunder? Yes, as far as India-Iran relations are concerned, yes, definitely yes. Because we have never followed unilateral sanctions before, right? Be it with Iran before, be it with Russia right now, we have bypassed American sanctions. Ideally, we should have done the same. Today, if you're bypassing sanctions with Russia, we should have done the same with Iran as well, because Iran is a strategic partner. As I told you, it's not just about India-Iran relations, it's also about our investments in Afghanistan, our ties with Central Asia. So we should have maintained independent ties with Iran. Ms. Bhai is asking why Chabahar port continued till now even after sanctions was imposed. What do you mean continued? See, once you build a project, it's for the lifetime, it's a permanent project. The project will continue. All right. And since Chabahar port was vital for trade in the region, India got an exemption from the US. US exempted Chabahar port from sanctions. And an Indian company still operates the terminal at Chabahar port. It is still crucial for trade in the region. All right. But connectivity with Afghanistan has been affected because the railway project was cancelled. But Chabahar port will continue to operate. Why will it stop? Because of sanctions. Yash is asking, how is Mongolia as a country? Is it also influenced by China? Obviously, Mongolia is a neighbor of China. It has a lot of Chinese influence. China dominates over Mongolia. However, Mongolia has issues and disputes with China as well. Because see, Mongolia shares a border with China, and China is very aggressive with regard to its borders with every country. So Mongolia has issues with the way in which China behaves. China dominates over the country. It has a lot of economic influence, diplomatic influence. So that's why India and Mongolia have started building close relations. We actually have decent, good relations with Mongolia as well. We have a military exercise with Mongolia. We even invest in Mongolia. But again, the topic is not too important unless it's in current affairs. Right? The static part is not relevant for the exam. But if there is something in current affairs between India and Mongolia, that would be relevant. Ashutosh is asking, how many questions can we expect in prelims from IR? I told you about this in the first class itself. It depends how many questions you get in IR. There's no fixed number as such. There are years where we had 0 questions. Okay? Don't think I'm disappointing you. I'm discouraging you. There have been years where we had 14 questions. Last year, for example, 2022. 14 IR questions. More than actually some of the major subjects. All right? So it depends. The numbers vary. On an average, you can say 5 to 6 questions. All right? Sometimes we have got 9, 10 questions also. Sometimes there were just 3 questions. So it depends. So on an average, 5 to 6. Obitra is asking, how can we get POK and accession back? You can't get it back. I've already addressed this question as well. Unless you're willing to fight a war with Pakistan and China, they're not going to give it up. India is not foolish enough to go to a war, right? It will be settled only through talks, only through negotiations, unless something dramatic were to happen. Sheikh is asking, RATS, please explain, sir, how Afghanistan, Pakistan is related to bringing close in SCO. I'm confused. Okay, see, RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, it's a platform within SCO. Under the SCO organization, there's a platform called RATS. It is meant for counter-terrorism in the region. So under Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, all the SCO members collaborate. Their intelligence agencies, security forces, they have a collaboration here. They share intelligence, they work together to counter radicalism, to tackle extremism, to tackle organized crime, terror funding. Because terrorism in this region affects everyone. I told you, terrorism affects China, it affects Russia, affects the Central Asian countries. And the hub of terrorism is Afghanistan, Pakistan. It's spreading to Central Asia, affecting everyone. It's affecting India as well, Iran as well. That's why you have this platform to counter terrorism under SCO. The intelligence agencies, they collaborate. National security advisors, they collaborate here. They share information, plan, and have operations together to curb terrorism and radicalism and terror funding in this region. Okay, so guys, these are the questions. Now, let's continue for 1 more hour. All right, we'll extend the class. That was the scheduled class as well. We'll need 1 hour to complete this chapter, roughly. I'll take all your doubts again as well. So let's wrap up India, US, with which we would have completed almost 95% of our syllabus. We'll have 1 more session, maybe another couple of hours is needed to look at Russia, United Nations, and a brief look at Europe, European Union especially. All right, so that is what will be left. We'll do another session for that. But today, let's complete India, US, which is a very, very important topic, especially the modern relations, the current relations between India, US in the last 20 years. From 2001, the relations that have developed between India, US is very, very important for our exams. You already know the historical overview. We've covered so many topics by now that India, US has been mentioned multiple times. When we spoke about India, Pakistan, India, China, India, Bangladesh, repeatedly references were made to the US. So you already have that idea what kind of relations we had with US. Let me refresh your memory. Just to give you the summary, we can divide India-US relations into 3 distinct phases. All right? From 1947 to 1970, there was a clear ideological difference, but still we were decent friends with each other. This was one phase of the relationship. What was the ideological difference? The Cold War divide was the difference. US wanted India to join the Western power bloc. US saw India as a democracy. US was confused why a democratic country was not joining other democratic countries. It never understood India's position that we needed an independent foreign policy. To protect India's unique interests, we needed an independent foreign policy. That's exactly what Prime Minister Nehru provided for. Principle of strategic autonomy became the bedrock of Indian foreign policy, and later we championed the non-aligned movement. So as India became non-aligned during this period, US had its suspicion on India. It always doubted India because the American assumption is that if you're not with them, you're against them. They assume this. They assume that if you're not with them, supporting them, you're against them. They don't understand that there is a third path, a neutral path, that is non-aligned path. So India had chosen non-alignment, whereas US was pushing India to join the democratic group, the Western bloc, and this led to an ideological difference. So we weren't extremely close. However, we did have a basic, decent relationship. US was assisting India in several areas. For example, food security was a critical area. India was struggling with food shortage after independence. The British had destroyed Indian agriculture. The initial Indian governments had a massive task in front of them to rebuild India's agriculture. The food insecurity had triggered famines. There was malnutrition everywhere, hunger everywhere in the country. So we relied on food imports for some years, and the US gave food aid to India. It supplied wheat and essential food grains to India on humanitarian grounds. Some of it was free grants, some of it was purchased by India, food imports. This was before the Green Revolution, before India became self-sufficient, right? From 1950s to 1960s, US played an important role in supplying food, providing food aid to India. Next, in the field of technology, for example, agriculture technology, US did play a role during the Green Revolution in developing some of the high-yield variety of seeds, in supplying fertilizers, pesticides, etc. In also critical domains like nuclear technology. In 1950s itself, India had sourced a nuclear reactor from Canada, right? Canada supplied this nuclear reactor to India because US had approved it. And US supplied uranium to India as well to run this reactor, the Canadian reactor, so India could establish nuclear electricity to power Indian villages. So there was cooperation in the nuclear domain as well. And quite interestingly, there was a covert collaboration targeted against China in late 1950s and post 1962. So there was a strategic aspect as well in the relationship. All right? Because see, China became a common threat from the very beginning. China annexed Tibet in 1950. This was criticized by Western countries, by US. India also criticized this. It committed a lot of atrocities in Tibet. And it crushed the Tibetan uprising in 1959, thus triggering the massive refugee crisis in Tibet. Correct? US cut off all relations with China. China was a communist state aligned with the Soviet Union. Obviously, during Cold War, US broke all ties with China. Because of its violations in Tibet, and since it was a Soviet ally, US broke all ties with China. But later, US got worried about China's nuclear weapons program. China was aggressively pursuing nuclear weapons during this period. It had accelerated the development of nuclear weapons in late 50s, and by early 1960s, it got ready to test its nuclear weapons. This was a concern not just for the US, it was a massive concern for India as well. All right, both had common concerns about China's nuclear program and its activities in Tibet. So to keep a watch on China's nuclear weapons program and its activities in Tibet, a covert operation was launched jointly by CIA and the Intelligence Bureau. And the CIA helped establish a covert unit for India called Establishment 22. Establishment 22 was one of the most secretive elite special force of India that was raised with American help. I'm saying IB, yes, I'm correct here, I'm not wrong, because RAW did not exist back then. RAW was created in 1968. Before RAW, both foreign and domestic intelligence of India was handled by Intelligence Bureau. We had only one civilian intelligence agency. So IB was looking after India's domestic intelligence and foreign intelligence. So IB collaborated with the CIA. Both were interested to monitor China's nuclear weapons program and its activities in Tibet. So to run these espionage programs, these covert espionage operations in China, the CIA and IB collaborated to raise a new special force unit called Establishment 22. This unit was formed mainly by using the Tibetans, the Tibetan refugees who were hosted by India. Right? They were trained as commandos, as a special elite force, and it would function as a special operations branch of the IB. It would function as a special operations wing of the IB to run these espionage programs and covert operations in Chinese territory. Right? To monitor its nuclear development, testing, to look at China's activities in Tibet, extend some support to Tibetan elements who are rebelling against China. Such an operation was run by the CIA and IB. It was a joint operation in the 1960s. All right? This unit is nothing but the SFF, the Special Frontier Force. Later, Establishment 22 was transferred to RAW after RAW was established in 1968. Since RAW was given the task of foreign intelligence, it came under research and analysis wing. It became the Special Operations branch of RAW. And it's called the SFF. It was renamed as SFF, Special Frontier Force. This is one of India's most secretive elite special forces. Not much is known about the force. It's a very secretive force. Recently, it saw action in Ladakh. When the Ladakh crisis happened, when China carried out major incursions in 2020, India also retaliated and captured some key positions. And this was an operation led by SFF commandos. All right? It's an elite special force unit of RAW meant for special operations. Remember I told you how Mukti Bahini was trained by RAW? It was again SFF. It was SFF commandos who trained the Bengali refugees and supported the Mukti Bahini. The arms training was given by RAW to Mukti Bahini through SFF. All right? It's been involved in Sri Lanka and in many other covert operations as well on foreign soil. Understood? So such kind of collaboration existed, but very quickly it was broken by 1968-69 as the US became hostile to India. This was over East Pakistan. I need not repeat this. We have studied this repeatedly in previous chapters. As Pakistan committed atrocities in East Pakistan, as India started supporting the Bengali rebellion, the Bengali liberation movement, US started threatening India, and especially when India gave support to Mukti Bahini and went to war to break Pakistan into two parts, the US threatened India with military consequences. US became completely hostile to India as it was pro-Pakistan. The then US President Richard Nixon was a notorious president as far as India was concerned. His national security advisor Henry Kissinger held personal hatred against India. It was racial bias against India. Driven by these American policies, US became hostile to India, a hostile serious threat to India. This forced Indira Gandhi to abandon non-alignment and sign the diplomatic treaty with the Soviet Union. It was seen as a masterstroke by Indira Gandhi. We abandoned non-alignment at the right time when India's interests were under threat. We sought Soviet help and support by signing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. So in the Cold War, we made a choice. We gave up non-alignment, we clearly aligned with Soviet Union, and obviously the relations became hostile from here. Soviet Union became our biggest supporter, started supplying weapons to India and assisting our nuclear and space program. India made rapid advances in the nuclear domain in 1970s, and by 1980s we emerged as a space power as well. In 1974, India conducted its first nuclear test at Pokhran under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and US obviously retaliated. From 1960s itself, US was running a campaign to derail our nuclear and space program, and that's the reason why mutual suspicion, mistrust came up in the relationship. India wouldn't trust US, US wouldn't trust India. A hostile relationship came up, even though culturally we were close. The people of India, US have always been close, but the governments, they developed strategic differences. There was mutual suspicion. This was a period of hostility where we didn't trust each other. Eventually, we tested nuclear weapons again.